Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. So this is our first ever virtual retreat, and I hope you guys enjoy the programming, and hopefully we'll be able to do stuff like this in the future. It's so great to have everybody together from all over the world, literally, so that's super fantastic. Just a couple of technical, I'll send you. So today what we'll be doing is we'll first be introing MPV, who we are, our communities and where we connect, MPV International, what we do worldwide, and then how we can help you, hopefully, with everything. As you go through, we have the Zoom meeting that you have, and for some reason it's not appearing on the screen, so bear with me. I may have to stop and restart. Yes, I will. So I'm going to unshare and then reshare. Apologies. There we go. Okay, there we go. So as we go through, if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. So this is what the chat screen looks like. It may be under more, it may be chat. This is your mute. This is your video if you want to start or stop it. And if you need to work with anything and you can't find something, it may be under this more section. So that's the Zoom part here. We'll also be on Facebook Live. So if you really can't figure it out, then you can always hop over there and we'll be glad to work. You can see us there. So again, like I said, we'll intro everything. We'll talk about the communities, MPV International, and then our resources. And so I'm going to actually turn this over to Maliha and let her intro and do all of that part of it.
Great, thank you, Kelly. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and Ramadan Mubarak. I hope you all are doing well in your respective homes, wherever you are around the world. I guess good afternoon, morning, evening, or depending on where you are. I know that these are strange times, and celebrating Ramadan under these circumstances can be difficult due to a loss of a sense of community. That is, in fact, one of the reasons why we decided to host this virtual retreat. We hope that in the next few hours you find comfort from your fellow progressive Muslims and allies, and that you enjoy the speakers and the performers we have lined up for you, and that you take away something new about MPV and your broader community. I won't take too much time right now because we do have a really great program for you, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I just want to briefly introduce myself and MPV for those of you who are not as familiar, perhaps. As Kelly mentioned, my name is Maliha Khan. I'm a co-chair of MPV National's Board of Trustees, alongside Kevin Jennings, who is unfortunately unable to join us today because he had a work conflict. So Kevin is the head of Lambda Legal, which is a national LGBT rights organization. And I know he's missing this. He did hope to be able to join us. So about me, I've been a member of MPV DC, of MPV broadly even, for about 10 years now, ever since I moved from New York to DC. And after becoming a member of the DC chapter for several years, I took on chapter leadership. And then a few years after that, Ani asked me to join the board for MPV National. And these roles, all of them, have been a tremendous privilege for me. And I'm incredibly proud to be part of such a progressive and impactful organization. I joined MPV just to be around fellow like-minded Muslims, as I'm sure many of you did, but I found so much more than that, so much just greater opportunity for growth. And MPV really is a grassroots movement of really intelligent, fierce activists who are doing tremendous things around the world. And I'm not going to go into it too much because I know you're going to hear about it from a bunch of other people like Ani. And honestly, I don't think I could even do justice to all that MPV does, because for an organization that has only one full-time and one part-time staff members, and is primarily run by volunteers. Beyond that, MPV does so much that I find it hard to keep track of it myself. So I hope you get a glimpse of that today and get to appreciate all that this community provides to, well, for ourselves, for the outside world, for everyone. And I will say the credit for a lot of that is really due to the tireless work of Annie Zonveld, who many of you know, of course, is the founder and president of MPV. I have had the privilege of working with Annie for several years now, and I can tell you she's one of the most hardworking, kind, resilient people out there, and she pours everything of herself into the work that she does for MPV. So you'll hear more about, the work she does and the work MPV does more broadly, not just here in the US in our 8 chapters, but around the world with affiliates like Alliance for Inclusive Muslims, or AIM, and through partner organizations like the United Nations. So with that, I'm gonna hand it off. Sit back, enjoy, and once again, stay safe, and thank you so much for joining us. I am going to introduce our next speaker. I believe it's going to be Kandil Javed. So Kandil is in Boston. He is co-director of our Boston chapter, and he's also recently a certified imam. So if anyone's looking for imam services in the Boston area, feel free to reach out to him. Please welcome Kandil.
Hi, Kandil.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Ramadan Kareem to you all. I am hoping that you all are staying safe and sound during these difficult times and staying connected with your community. I'm very delighted to be here today and looking forward to the presentation that we have for you. And not just the presentation, but this is a chance for you to really meet with us, to really get to know folks around the globe. Not just the US, but around the globe, and really connect with them, right? So we do a lot of work in our communities and our partnering organizations, and this is the one-off opportunity where you would get to meet progressive Muslims from around the globe. And usually every year we meet, and what we do is all the chapter leaders, organizers, we meet and we have a retreat in person. And because of social distancing, there is an opportunity that we are able to extend this and invite all of you to this beautiful space.
All right. Video?
Yep.
Is the volume to the video?
Hello, can everybody hear me?
We're doing the video right now.
Okay, so what we have here on the screen is basically a, oftentimes media portrays a very restricted picture of Muslims around the world. And oftentimes that is seen as something that it shows a very, very negative image of it. While we do understand the odds and the misuse of social media, we also recognize that there is great stuff that our organization is doing around the globe. And if you search our work, that could easily be accessible through the media, through the social media. And right now, if you can see, there is, here on the screen, there are communities. We have about 8 communities in the US, Atlanta, Georgia. We have Boston, Massachusetts, Chicago, Illinois. We have a community in Columbus, Ohio. We have a community in New York. We have a community in LA, San Francisco, and Washington, DC. And with this, we also have we're serving multiple states. And with this, we have partnering organizations also, which I would talk about in a second.
Kandil, if you don't mind, we would like to now introduce the other chapter directors, please. Kelly from Atlanta.
Hi, all. Good to see you.
Talk about a bit about your activities as well, please.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know we were going that way. In Atlanta, we're very lucky. We both have our MPV community and as well as the Atlanta Unity Mosque, which is in association with El Farouk's Unity Mosque system. And so through those, we're able to provide community services. We provide worship services. We have 2 imams on staff. And our community works a lot in person, but we also have a lot of virtual stuff as well through Facebook and Meetup and a WhatsApp group and lots of things. So currently at present, we are of course doing Ramadan activities. So we have online Juma every Friday. And then we partner with a Sufi group in the area for Maghrib prayer on Friday evenings and on Sundays for dhikr. And then we also are partnering with MPV DC for a nightly Quran reading, which has been so much fun. So lots of good things going on in Atlanta. So if you are in our area, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to have you join us.
I'm calling on Maliha to talk about the activities in Washington, D.C. area.
Yeah, hi everyone again. So in the DC area, we use primarily meetup.com as our platform for organizing and meeting up. We have a little over 1,000 members registered across the district in Maryland and Virginia. And we do, similar to Atlanta and some other chapters, we do a variety of activities, religious and social, both throughout the year. Ramadan is generally really special. We do a bunch of things. Of course, we've taken it virtual this year. So we're doing nightly Quran readings alongside Atlanta and New York. And yeah, you can find more information on meetup.com and or reach out to me and I can get you your answers.
Maya from New York, and Trevor.
Hi everybody, my name is Maya. I'm one of the co-directors for MPV New York, along with Mullah Momeni and Trevor Stevens. We have a really lovely community that's been growing over the years. We try to do monthly events at a shared Metropolitan Community Church, New York. We have been doing a lot of events over Zoom with everything going on, and providing, as much as we can to our community at this time.
Is Trevor sharing his perspective as well?
Yes. Yeah, I'm here too. Trevor Stevens. I mean, I don't have a lot to add to that except that, yeah, I've been a member of the chapter since, I think exactly since 1 year, exactly since last Ramadan. So I feel still kind of getting to know people, but it's been a really great experience. Yeah, and we have some great partnerships, like with one of the progressive synagogues in the city that in the recent past, we've done some great things with. And yeah, we've been having a great Ramadan so far on Zoom.
Excellent. From San Francisco, Phil, Sabahat, or Kevin?
Hi, assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Philip Tooley. I'm the director for the chapter. Okay, my video has been okay. Thank you. So at any rate, San Francisco is in a rebuilding situation. We've had some issues with basically trying to get enough people. We are so spread out in our area that it has been hard for us to get a group going as thick as we'd like to and as many people as we'd like to. I wasn't really expecting to give too much more information other than we are now starting, because we are on lockdown, we are on shelter in place. We are starting a Zoom meeting every month. We are starting to look at doing khutbahs and Jumas every Friday online through Zoom. And we are mainly on meetup.com. So we are looking to have more people come in and join us, because we are trying to be busy. We have done the Pride Parade. Unfortunately, this year there will be no Pride Parade, and we have joined with the San Francisco Interfaith Council. So we are getting going, but we could always use more bodies, and we are always welcoming you. Oh, you can't see me.
Okay.
That's weird. Hang on a second.
Yeah, we'll fix that later.
Oh, there we are.
Is there anybody else from San Francisco joining you to?
Yeah, Kevin, you want to speak out?
Sure. I'm Kevin Mogg. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. And I won't say much more than Philip has already said, but I've been involved for a year or two, and we're just we have people on our meetup list. I try to, and kind of people are coming in. We're trying to find our mix, and I've really appreciated this a nice unintended consequence of the pandemic has been being able to visit other groups and see what they're doing on Zoom, and it's giving me ideas to share with our local people to get more going. So thank you.
Thank you.
If I may toss in real quick one more thing. Yeah, the advantage of seeing us do Zoom and of the pandemic helping us is that we are actually starting to grow, and we're starting to see more involvement, and Kevin is a huge part of that, and just want to give him a shout out and say thank you.
That's very nice. So I'd like to invite MPV of Boston, Kandil. And someone's fine.
Hey, so welcome again. I'm very delighted to be here in this virtual retreat, and I would like to introduce my chapter leaders, or the board, what we call here in Boston. Our community has been around since 2017, but became a chapter in 2018. And in this community, I have 4 board members, Nadia, Montana, and Abdul Majid. And with that, the community started off with 18 people, and now, alhamdulillah, the community is about 200 plus people. We do various kind of events, from religious to interfaith to local involvement in giving back to the community, and Women's March, Pride, and various other activities. Very delighted to be here.
Thank you. Anybody else from Boston, or is that it? No, that's it. All right, let's go to Columbus, MPV Columbus. Frank? Are you there?
Hi.
Hi.
This is Frank Parmier, Columbus, Ohio. I attended an early MPP conference. I'll start my video. How do I do that? Sorry. I attended an early conference in MPP conference, probably about 10 years ago. And when I left, I promised Ani I would bring back a report of a vibrant MPV community in Columbus, Ohio the next year. And now we're 8 or 9 years on, and we haven't made it yet, but we're still trying.
It's all good. We have, that's the best thing, is to keep trying. All right, MPV Chicago, Aisha Ahmed, are you online? No, I guess not. Are you? Alrighty.
I don't believe she's on yet.
Okay. All right, let's go on to MPV LA. I'd like to invite Adnan and Naz to Adnan.
Well, assalamu alaikum everyone, and Ramadan Mubarak. It's a pleasure to be joining in on this. We at MPV LA, like many other of the groups, have like a meetup page, so put up events there. This past year, been hosting a Quran reading group, which has been a wonderful experience. and that has transitioned into the Zoom meetups. And this Ramadan, we're having every Sunday night an iftar, a virtual iftar, which has been nice so far. So anyone can join in on that. And then otherwise, we have like a number of other programs going on at LA. Naseem?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Naseem, and I just recently joined MPV, and I found it very, very helpful. Thanks to Adnan. Just like how he said, we do have Quran studies. I recommend everyone to join. It is not every day that we get a platform like this where we discuss and dive into Islam and redefine it for ourselves. I am really, really glad and honored to be part of this group. And hopefully in the future, we'll have more events and coordinate and collaborate with others.
Okay, this is Ani, and I am the founder of the MPV LA, which started out in January of 2006. And so most of our activities when I founded was registered on meetup.com, just because it was an open platform that I felt, well, if anybody's going to find or to be part of a new community, it would be through meetup.com. And so that's basically where it started, and alhamdulillah, it's proliferated, and I'm very happy that we have this large body of progressive Muslims now, and also growing. And so I suppose we can now move on to the official presentation that I've prepared for everyone about what MPV is about. And so, like I said, my name is Ani Zonneveld. I'm the founder and president of Muslims for Progressive Values. Greetings to everyone. Ramadan Mubarak. I am very happy that we also have attendees from all over the world. Denmark, I see. I'm sorry if I missed so many other countries, but welcome to you as well. I often get asked, what does MPV do, or what do I do? Because I travel a bit. Frankly, we're not very good at promoting the work that we do, as it is very vast, and mostly we're pretty much spread thin. Like Maliha said, there's only one full-time employee, which is myself, and obviously the support of our board of trustees and our volunteers. We could not be the vibrant community had it not be for our volunteers. But regardless, the volume of work and impact we make is felt all over the world and here in the United States. It has changed American Muslim attitudes profoundly. The program today will include an overview of the initiatives we roll out and the impact they have on real cultural shifts in attitudes in Muslim societies. Next. Next slide, please. How do we build a progressive movement? And we use the term rebuild because we believe Islam at its inception is progressive and revolutionary for the society for which it was revealed. But we believe Islam is also rooted in love, compassion, and merciful. Next slide. So this poem explains our path. It is, thank you. It's from Ibn Arabi. Let me try to open this. I follow the way of love, and where love's caravan takes its path, there is my religion, my faith. Next slide, please. So why is there such a resistance to basic human rights, women's rights in particular, when these rights were given to us 1400 years ago, for which we are still fighting for? Why is a theology of hate perpetuated as truth of Islam, denouncing the other, whoever the other is, as wrong, on the path of wrong? Next slide, please. Muslims for Progressive Values envisions a world that reflects Islam as a source of dignity, justice, compassion, and love for all. This is only possible when we affect the cultural mindset in Muslim societies. Our methodology is to flip the narrative from hate to love. And in the context of Islam, in the framing of our work, after all, who wants to be oppressed? Everyone wants to be free. It's the politicians and their religious tools who want you to believe that to be a good Muslim is to suffer and to be oppressed. Next. MPV is registered in Los Angeles after many of us convened at Sarah Lawrence College in New York in the summer of 2017. Some of the folks who voted for me as president tasked with registering the organization with $0 budget are here on this retreat, particularly Al Farouk from Canada. Next slide. 13 years on, we are spread out across the US and in many communities not listed in this map as virtual communities. We have a virtual group that is made up of 26,000 plus people. And we also have virtual communities in Florida and other parts of the United States. Next slide. To answer, what do you do and what does MPV do? There are 3 buckets. The US, you have already heard from our chapter directors, the global, and at the UN. These you will hear from our partners and friends in a bit. So, we cannot change the culture in Muslim societies to one rooted in human rights until we re-educate the public. And in the democracy, the public votes for a representative that reflects their values. If they are misogynistic and homophobic, they will vote for that representative, which will then legislate according to their beliefs. So, for example, in the United States, we have a lot of right-wing Christian legislators who interpret their version of Christianity into law. And therefore we have what I call the Christian Sharia law. So this is no different than much in the Muslim societies where the laws are very much influenced by Sharia law based on legislators, their extrapolation of the Quran. Next slide, please. Here are the thematic areas which we are active in at all levels, at the vertical and horizontal levels. So at the community level, informing policymakers, diplomats, and at the UN, we all address these issues in different ways depending on who our audiences are. Next slide. All our activities are intended to debunk misinformation, re-educate the public, and this includes an individual's spiritual ownership and right, self-expression, identity, promoting a full-throated right to be you. You cannot live your life to the fullest to contribute to society as God has designed for you if you cannot be you. It is that simple, but yet so difficult because our Muslim societies have placed false shackles around our necks in the name of Islam. Next. So, this is my short presentation on the United States and the overview of the philosophy of Muslims for Progressive Values. I will now sing a song to set the tone because we cannot do a cultural shift in Muslim societies if we don't include music. Okay. Can you hear the music? Oh, Allah grants me light in my heart, light in my grave, light in front of me, light behind me, light to my right and light to my left, light above me, light below me, light in my bones. Oh, Allah, increase my light everywhere. Oh, Allah grants me light in my heart. flesh, light in my blood, light within my sound, light on my tongue, light in my eyes, my ears, light in front of me, light behind me, increase my light. Oh, Allah, increase my light everywhere. Oh, Allah, grant me light in my heart. Ameen. 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 All right. Where did I go? So I lost my, where am I?
Are you able to see the screen?
Okay. I can't see. I can't see myself. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay, that's strange. Okay.
Click on gallery view.
Wow, this is weird. But somebody else, this is strange. Oh, here, maybe this is it. No. Oh, here.
Annie, click on the.
Here, I see it. I see. Thanks. Sorry about that. Okay. So now I would like to invite Imam Khalfan. Is he on? I'm trying to, but can I access the meeting room? Okay. There he is. Imam Khalfan, my buddy. So
good morning. Good morning. Good evening.
Good evening. So Imam Khalfan is our partner of in Burundi, and he is our Imam Soshi champion, and he is the executive director of Alliance des Imams de Corridor Nord pour le développement humanitaire of Burundi, which means basically imams for the development of humanitarian and development in the northern corridor of Burundi. So Imam Khalfan, please, I hand it over to you to talk about the work and how we met and all that good stuff. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Annie. As Annie told, I'm Imam Bukuru Eri Khalfan from Burundi. I'm a president and founder of Alliance of Imams for North Corridor for Humanitarian Development. I am a partner, a potential partner with the MPV. So how I found MPV, I was checking on Google. It was in 2016, June 2, I sent the first email to MPV. There is a professional email of MPV, and I sent them an email to ask them if they can work with me, because if I try to analyze the aims of MPV, it was like for our organization. And after 1 week, I received an email from MPV, told me that, yo, wow, we need imams to partner in our program. It was an email we sent by MPV. And that day I was very happy because I saw them to appreciate our work. And after 2 weeks, we sent several intensive email to MPV, and they reply me. It was no, it was not in 2016, but it was in 2015. And we continue to write one each other till in 2016, where we signed a partnership, a formal partnership. It was November 4, 2015. And there, Annie starts to, MPV start to work to help me by paying me internet connection, for buying me a computer, and we try to work formally with the MPV. They invited for the first time to participate, to be a speaker in New York. It was a CSW. There, unfortunately, I didn't get an email. So I met for my first time MPV President Anne Zonneveld. It was in June in Geneva in 2016. And we met head by head in Geneva and discussed more about our work. But before they found to do, we partnered them in Imams for She campaign as Imam, and Imams for She, it was a campaign which must be run by Imams. And in that campaign, we did a lot of work by starting in 2016, where we organized 3 workshops founded by MPV, because MPV helped me to get funds. It was in 16, and we continue in 2017. We did also 3 educational workshops and summer camp, when we invite 30 girls to be involved in that camp. It was the same in 2018. We did also 2 educational workshops and 1 summer camp. Also in 2019, we did the same. And there we did also for Rwanda and DRC. Anne Zonneveld or MPV helped me gave me a visibility, gave me a space of talking. MPV flies me to Geneva, flies me in New York, and in different international meetings and conferences when I was invited as a speaker. And also, MPV have opened a larger space for our organization, because other organizations see us as a tool in order to develop the different programs. MPV also help us to increase our imams in our organization, because before when we start to partner with the MPV, we were only 26 imams, but now we are 36 imams who joins our organization and try to raise the status of women together. And MPV also, during these 5 years of partnership, we work hard, and the status of women here in Burundi was so with another phase of raising women's rights, mainly Muslim women's rights, because many embassies work with us through MPV. Here I can mention, for example, Dutch government, which help us to work on the curriculum, which will be forecasted to teach children with the age of 5 to 12 years old. And also the US Embassy, who supports our Imams for She also by paying school fees for girls, and also to teach them entrepreneurship. And also UN Women here in Burundi, who want to who have signed a partnership with them in order to work together in a project with it to raise status of women, Muslim women in Burundi. So I have nothing to thank for MPV for the work which they did, and which they are doing in Burundi, and which they will do in Burundi. To say also to Allah to protect this organization, this progressive organization, because it is the only organization who teach for me for the first time to see with another face the true Islam. And with also MPV, we were with the force of MPV, we were on the space to create a big umbrella of Muslim organization, which I am the vice president of this organization, Alliance of Inclusive Muslim, AM, which is the international organization based in Geneva. It is the first of MPV who bring this idea for the first time in order to get this idea for a whole organization of the world, Muslim organization of the world. And we think with the new ideas of MPV, we will build a big empire of most progressive Muslims in order to get a better world in the Muslim community. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Imam Khalfan. Well, I think that the success of a program cannot happen unless you have a successful partner. And the thing about Imam Khalfan is that he is so undeterred by hindrance, threats, and what have you. And he's always been a real true champion, even when I've gone through difficult things. I've called him to say, you know, I'm always under attack because of LGBT rights, for example. Maybe it's better you unfriend me on Facebook, because what I do as an leading prayer, etc., for many in the Muslim world is blasphemous. And I call him and I tell him, you know, it's going to protect you if you unfriend me. And then he goes, no, Ani, we're not going to do that. We're going to double down on our message. And so that's the kind of partner that Imam Khalfan is. It's at the end of the day, you can open open doors for your partners, but they have to be just as hardworking, as dedicated, and as true and pure of the niyat, of the intention of the work. If you're motivated by money, it doesn't work. If you're motivated by the cause and the true human rights and alleviating the suffering of the people and the member of your community, then the universe and God will open the doors for you. So this is also really key, to work with partners with a pure intention. I also want to say that, you know, I know we're a few minutes behind, but I think this is very important to share. So when we started working, I said to Khalfan, can you send me the signed agreement tonight? And that means, you know, time difference and everything. And because, you know, I'm in America, I have a printer, I have my scan here, I have internet connection, you know, what's the problem, right? So this is the naivete of us in the West. And Imam Khalfan said, Ani, is like, I have to drive 3 hours in order to scan and to email this to you because I don't have internet connection. So, and that kind of like was like slap in the face. And it just goes to show how you're working in different contexts. You have to really understand their context, and you have to look at it from where they're coming from. And so this is where I think Imam Khalfan and his community and his imams educate me, and so it's a real you know, give and take kind of relationship. So since Khalfan covered Alliance of Inclusive Muslims as well as the Imams for Sheep programming, there's a lot of that information on our website, but I'd like to invite Fred, who is our board member, I know it's keeping the program around a little bit, but Fred, are you online? Because then, since we've been talking about Alliance of Inclusive Muslims and the global context of our progressive voice, maybe it would help for just to segue into your perspective and how you as a United Nations executive. So let me introduce to you Fred Fanish. Is he on? I don't see his picture, his face. There you are. Hi, Fred. Nice to see you.
Hi everybody.
Thank you for joining us so late in the evening from where you're at. So Mr. Fred Fanish is the MENA, Middle East and North Africa Regional Representative of No Peace Without Justice and a board member of Alliance of Inclusive Muslims. Prior to that, he was the United Nations for a total of 20 years with his last posting as Chief of Asia, Pacific, Middle East and North Africa branch, which is much of the world, by the way, and at the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, which was based in Geneva. So welcome, Fred. It's very, thank you for joining us and to educate the audience about the work, the scope of work, the context in the United Nations and the member states and how they stand in positions of human rights or lack thereof. On to you.
Thank you, Annie, and good morning, good evening to everybody. I'm talking from Geneva, so I'm joining from Geneva, where I'm based. What can I say? First of all, you have to change this picture because it's a very old picture. I'm now an old man. After all these years spent within the UN and all the problems in Asia, Pacific and North Africa, Middle East, and during the last 10 years in particular with the Arab Spring and all these violations where we were hoping an improvement of the situation in terms of freedoms, in terms of human rights, respect of human rights, and also freedom of religion and all these issues. Unfortunately, the situation is worst. So you have to change this the picture.
No worries.
No, I'm not from MPV, but I'm a strong friend of MPV. And for many reasons, personal reasons, I cannot be a member of MPV, but I could ask it for that, but for many reasons, including personal reasons and professional reasons, I was not able to join MPV, but I'm a strong friend of MPV for many, many reasons. The first one, first reason for me is that, let me tell you, I will give a testimony, let's say, because my first contact with MPV was in 2015 or 14. 14.
Human Rights Day, International Human Rights Day, December 2000.
Yes, exactly. When I met a team of MPV with Annie, who came to try to meet the High Commissioner for Human Rights for the first time. I was in Geneva, and I received her in my office, and we started a discussion about what's the MPV and what do they want to do. And at that time, it was maybe their first visit to Geneva or first contact with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, at least. And we engaged in a very, very interesting discussion about Islam and about the situation of Muslims around the world, in particular in the Western countries. And then we facilitated the contact with the High Commissioner. She met the High Commissioner, and the High Commissioner at that time, Zaid, what's his full name, Annie? Zaid? Amir Zaid, okay. Zaid al-Hussein. Zaid al-Hussein. You know, I worked with all of them except the current one, Michelle Bachelet. But all of them, yes, I worked with the first one and also the last one. So he encouraged me to engage with MPV and with Annie and to facilitate their work. You remember at that time, we were in the middle of Daesh and all these extremism movements. And in the West, including within the UN, Islam and Muslims are not well considered. And there was a confusion between Islam as a religion and terrorism as a policy or as an activity and a criminal activity. And this confusion is not true, but it was facilitated by Daesh and all these extremist groups, and also by many states and many governments in the West, but also within the Arab world and the Muslim world. So the fact that you have in face of you an organization, an NGO, fighting for a conciliation between human rights principles and Islam as a religion, as a spiritual principles also, was at that time something very encouraging. Because within the UN, we started discussing how to fight extremism and violent extremism. Now it's, the name is violent extremism, but in reality it's Islamist extremism. So how we can fight that? And we were inside the Office of the High Commissioner with many other special rapporteurs discussing the best way to fight against extremism and against Daesh and allies. So the fact to have an organization like MPV was very encouraging. And I have to say that also the leadership of MPV was really, not only they were convinced about what they want to do, but also they succeeded to have the correct discourse and narrative, and to convince many people that Islam is not what they see in the field, in terms of terrorism, in terms of discrimination, in terms of exclusion, in terms of denial of women's rights, of equality, and also what is very important, that MPV was amongst the very few organizations from Muslim countries who were fighting for non-discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or religious or any other reason. So this was very important. And of course, the context in Geneva and within the UN is not very easy and is not very encouraging. First, because you have many countries or many governments within the Human Rights Council, including the Human Rights Council, from the Arab region and also Asian countries like Pakistan, for example, or Saudi Arabia, or Egypt even. They try to fight against human rights by saying we have a specific cultural specificity as Muslim countries. And at the same time, they want to fight against terrorism and against extremism. So they were not very comfortable with a new organization who will come to the Human Rights Council to say, listen, this is also, you are violating human rights and you are not respecting Islam principles. You are not very different from any other government who is violating human rights. we are Muslims, but we are not like you, and we are Muslims, but we are not like Daesh. And Islam is not that. So you have, and we have to make some kind of conciliation between Islam and the human rights, which is very, very important. And the 3 points for this kind of governments within the Human Rights Council, within the UN, blasphemy, of course, and equality between men and women, and also sexual orientation. The fourth one is death penalty. So they accept everything except when it comes to equality between men and women, they say, no, Sharia doesn't allow that. And we have to respect our Islam and our religion. When it comes to death penalty and corporal punishment, for example, they will say, no, this is something that we cannot accept. Death penalty is something from Allah. This is our religion. And when it comes to equality in terms of sexual orientation, this is this is a blasphemy in itself. When you find an NGO, a small organization, based on very progressive values of Islam, saying no. And when you find, for example, the breakthrough, I think, happened when MPV brought to the Palais des Nations, to Geneva, to the Human Rights Council, a group of imams, including Imam Khalfan. Hi, Imam Khalfan, how are you? No. When these imams came and they were dispatched in the Palais des Nations with their jabba and jalabiya and all this very traditional costume, let's say, and they were in contact with these people coming and going. You know, in the Palais des Nations, you have 2,000-3,000 people every day from all the world. So, and we put some tables and to explain what's Islam. This is Imam for human rights, Imams for Shia, Imams fighting for human rights. Can you imagine that Islam will fight for human rights? It's impossible in Geneva for somebody in Geneva to consider that. So they were in contact with these people, and this was gave a lot of visibility and credibility to MPV. I don't want to say too much, but yes, maybe today it's important to think about post-COVID-19 from an MPV perspective. This is very important, I think. Why? Because it seems that the COVID-19 will have, it's sure that COVID-19 will have a lot of negative impact in terms of discrimination and in terms of visibility of Muslim communities. And for example, MPV, I'm not aware if you did already that or not, but MPV can fight for the respect of all these health measures, like the social distanciation, and like, for example, to say that it's not possible to ask for prayer by groups in the mosques, etc. This is not against Islam. This is not against Sharia. This is something that we have to respect, because you will see many Islamist groups who will take this opportunity to fight against these measures in order for them to be more popular. So we have to hear from some voices like MPV. Now to conclude, and if somebody has any question, of course, I will be available. But to conclude, I can say that No Peace MPV when they created and established Alliance for inclusive Muslims, AIM, is an additional voice, but it's a very strong voice. Sometimes one voice can make the difference, and MPV made this difference. And although it's like David fighting Goliath, but this is also a role that MPV has to play, and it's the honor of MPV to do it, thanks to the courage of many people within MPV, and in particular Annie, not because you are here, but this is something that we have to recognize. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Fred. Really appreciate you. Thank you, Fred. I really appreciate you contributing your perspective within the UN context and that environment. Of course, it helps to have partners like yourself, who is of Muslim heritage, to be our champion within the UN system. And this is just as important as us having a voice. So we really appreciate your solid camaraderie. So anyway, moving on. We're doing nicely on time. I would like to say just one word about AIM, and then I will introduce Kandil, and who will take over the chairing of this retreat. Alliance of Inclusive Muslims is the global umbrella organization, and it is actually the first human rights umbrella organization, which is also progressive, obviously. And I think what we have is we have many members from all over the world, from Latin America to Indonesia and the whole spectrum, and it's continuing to expand. It is what is very important is that collective voice that Fred was talking about, how one voice is good, but collectively we are so much more powerful. And it's made up of scholars of Islam, it's made up of women and human rights defenders, as well as religious leaders, because they are just as important. And what's really nice is the dynamic between all these different entities, which usually don't really collaborate with each other. The imams do their own thing, the human rights do their own thing, etc., etc. This is a way for us to bridge all the different narratives into one collective voice. So that's how powerful it can potentially be, and has been. So thank you from me, and I'm going to turn this over to Kandil, who is the co-director of MPV Boston. Bye for now.
Thank you, Annie. So with this, we're going to move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Abdi Noor Iftin. Abdi Noor Iftin is a proud Somali American. Abdi is the author of a beautiful memoir called Call Me American. Please join us to hear his experience seeing the shift in Somalia from a moderate and peaceful Muslim nation to Al-Shabaab. While he saw this shift in living in Somalia, he experienced a shift in America from warm and welcoming American community to Trump's travel ban on Somalia. I don't think 10 minutes is enough to hear his amazing story, but maybe we can get a little taste of it. Please welcome Abdi.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Kandil, I have lived in Somalia. Well, first of all, hey everybody, it's great to see you all. It's such an honor. So I have come to the U.S. Before Trump was elected. Just a little bit before, you know. And so the reason why I wrote this memoir and why I titled it Call Me American was, in fact, realizing that there is a misconception, you know, a lot of narrative that are out there that you might be able to have seen on Hollywood. There's a movie called Black Hawk Down. And then there's another one called Captain Phillips. So if you had the chance to see those two movies, and I have spoken to a lot of Americans, and it came to me that this is, quite a way to tell a narrative that actually does not exist or is not really true. For instance, if you watch Captain Phillips, which is a film made in Hollywood by Hollywood about the Somali pirates, right? But I mean, coming from Somalia, you sort of like know that within our own nation and country and the ocean and everything that we have, it's sort of become a way for the world's powers to come and influence and somehow get involved or dumping some wastage or something like that. And so that made the fishermen come out of the ocean and on the land. And other than sitting there, they decided to fight back. But that's not in the film. I'm not here to defend pirates. I think it's a pretty bad action. But it's important to really talk about what sort of brings someone to act that way. So Somalia, where I come from, had a massive power shift by the year 2006. Some of you may know this if you have really followed the history and the news from Somalia. Before 2006, Somalia was such a peaceful Sufi Muslim where nobody had ever blew themselves up, or nobody had attacked anybody else based on a sect or religion or anything like that. It was just a tribal line that people had been killing each other up until 2006 when I turned 20. And, that was basically when I became a man. And I wanted life, and I wanted, a direction for my life. So my own friends knocking at my door, dragging me out of the house and sort of saying, you're wrong. You can't have a dream. You can't have your own opinion or views or things like that. And the fact that I was treated as someone who just needs to convert to Islam, which is really ridiculous because I'm someone who has studied Quran 7 years, memorized it, and I enjoy the peaceful, faith that we have lived in, where in the 80s and 60s and 70s, when Somalia was peaceful, if you're a woman and if you decide to become a musician, you could, or if you decided to go back in the nomadic lifestyle and herd your goats and camels, and nobody had forced you to go to the mosque, and so that has changed by 2006 when, on the streets of Mogadishu, dressing, wearing jeans or playing soccer, or going to the movie or playing some music on your phone has sort of like become a crime. And that was definitely, as you can imagine, if you're from Afghanistan, Pakistan, other countries, you might have sort of experienced this. So that's that. And then so what happened is I was forced to leave my own country and become a refugee in Kenya for about 5 years, actually a little over 5 years. And within that time, within the 5 years that I was trying to get my way to the United States, 3 times out of 4 times, my visa had been denied based on being a young man, a Muslim, and from Somalia. So those 3 things, your nationality, your faith, and your age sort of became, in this case, a challenge, and I didn't really know how to overcome. I didn't know what to do. I kept going back and forth. I try to tell my story in any way that I can, to show a narrative that is, I fled Somalia. I fled Somalia because I didn't really want to go into a system that I was not ready for. I wasn't quite sure. I didn't understand this new faith that has come. It's completely new to me, and turning 20, so that, you know, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to be somebody who wants to enjoy his life, or wanted to go to school and study as much as I can, and meet other nationalities and other faith and, you know, other genders, you know, whatever is out there. I wanted to get to the world, basically. It's not that I was really dying to come to the US and not want it anywhere else, but the fact that this is a nation of immigrants, so I fought for it. I had one way to go, and I kept going that way. So 5 years of challenge and not really being able to go through the bureaucracy, you know, Homeland Security, FBI. It's just basically that my name was on the administrative processing, you know, for a long time, until I won the lottery. And then, you know, there was also the same issues that kept coming back. Even though I won a lottery, I could not yet convince, you know what a lottery is. You have to win a lottery, but there's no requirement. You don't have to speak English. You know, you don't have to belong to a certain nationality. You don't have to belong to a certain color. It's just a lottery. And if you read State Department's website, you know, anybody can apply. So I had the advantage of speaking English, knowing the history of this country, and reading several books, but those were not considered as any useful, you know, things for me to show, to prove that I could come and live in this country. So what happened that I'm here now? How did that come about? So I used storytelling as a weapon. I did, and you know, I used a narrative that is promoting and improving the lives of those who are caught up in these two worlds: the world of Al-Shabaab and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, you know, those who do not represent Islam, and the world of bureaucracy, America, who really thinks that that group, you know, if you come from Afghanistan, if you come from Palestine, if you come from Somalia, that you certainly, you know, have a tag on yourself. That you could be Hamas, that you could be Al-Shabaab, you could be a Taliban, you could be Al-Qaeda, you could be, you know, ISIS. And I wanted to prove that that's not true. Majority of us are peaceful, and we want to live in a world that is hand in hand, harmony, peaceful, loving, right? No matter what. And I'm very, I could say I'm very lucky that that has happened before the 2016 election. So I landed in the US in August 2014, right on time to be able to sit here, get a green card, and then go through the election, and have Trump come over. And this, you know, the travel ban comes in. And I'm very sure if it was around that time, I could not have been here. No, I could not. So that's my story. And I wrote this book and called it Call Me American, to just say that you don't have to be an American to be born in this country. You know, you can be American by heart, by believing in the values of human beings, and you know, believing in life and wanting to be what you want to be. So I'm not really using America here in a way to say people in this country. You know, that's not really, I think, the way we see it. So many of us here, you know, in this Zoom call today, some of you may live here, some of you may not, but we're all together in this. You know, we're speaking English together. We understand the history of each, you know, each country's, you know, background or the beauty of things, and that is what we mean by, to me at least, you know, America. And so far, I don't want to go over the time, but so far I have really been able to tour across the nation by visiting schools, libraries, bookstores, communities who have picked up each a copy of my book. And as they read through, the feedback that I receive and the comments that I've received so far are like, wow, you know, now I know a lot about your country. I know a lot about your culture. I know a lot about your faith. That it's not really what we read on New York Times, you know, that article that we read on New York Times, or, you know, that movie that we had seen on Hollywood. But so it's important for people to tell their stories personally through their own lives, right? Because that gets into the hearts and minds of someone. That's the beauty of it. Since Somalia has not really, I mean, it's 30 years of war now. So we have lost all kinds of industry, music, films, nothing exists. Archives have been destroyed. So I thought, why don't I stand up for myself? I mean, I haven't really been able to see, being able in Somalia to see peace. My dad did see that. My mom had seen, they were there, they got married, they moved to the city. And then when I was born, the war begins. So I have not been able to go to a school, or have not been able to experience sort of like social life. It was just a civil war other than a civil society. But in the meantime, I needed to experience the life like every other kid's doing. You could be in Europe, you could be in Asia. You have every right to go pick up every piece of knowledge that you can and get to know people as much as you can. And then as you do that every single step, it's more knowledge, it's more interesting things. You get to know people, cultures, music, faiths, and all those kind of things. So I'm still in the process. I can't say I know a lot, but just 5 years in the U.S., we have to deal with all of what's happening right now. COVID-19, I just would like to conclude this. COVID-19 had impacted my community really bad. I mean, I'm in Maine, the state of Maine. Mosques have been shut, but the communities are staying in their neighborhoods. But then there was a story yesterday that more Black people are being affected by the virus, mostly because we can't stay at our houses. We have to go do something. You got to work at the store, grocery store, or you got to be working at the gas station. Those few places that are open. And in Somalia's economy or source income depended on those of us here in the U.S. wiring money back through the Hawala, and that has stopped. So meaning this Ramadan, my own family in Mogadishu don't have $1 in their house. And there's no way that I can, I could help to wire that money out, because there's no banking system. There's no cell phone system that you can wire money. You could do that in Kenya and other countries, but you can't do that in Somalia. And the virus is also there. It's killing people massively. So it gives me this scary feeling as I receive phone calls from home, my mom and my sister and all that. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdi. I hope that your family stays safe and sound during these tough times. It's an honor and pleasure to have you as a part of and a very active member of Muslims for Progressive Values in Boston.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. And when you came here and you spoke to our community, a lot of us got touched by it and were able to connect with that because just that notion that you don't have to be an American by birth to you have the American values and to be an American, and that spoke to a lot of us in our community. And we just hope that you continue this great work, and we stay safe and sound during these tough times. So with that, I think I would like to move on to our community building part of presentation. Okay, so with that, again, my name is Kandil Javed. I'm one of the co-directors for Muslims for Progressive Values Boston. And before I start talking about what are the attributes of building a community and how to know if you are a part of a community or not, I would like to give you a little story of how I came about this journey and got to be a part of this community as I am today. So next slide. So most of you have seen this movie. It's a Disney movie called Finding Nemo. There is 4 phases in here that I'm gonna tell you my really big story in really short amount of time, which is that, let's say I am Nemo for a few minutes, and this is me in a cult. I was born free, and one day I found myself in a place where I wasn't allowed to ask questions. I wasn't allowed to think critically. I wasn't allowed to be myself. And the people around me thought that I was an outlier just because I was different, just because I didn't fit into the lifestyle that they thought was normal as a Muslim. And with that, various parts of my identity, being gay and Muslim in a South Asian American household, I found myself isolated, right? I was outlined, and then here I am in isolation. For years, I was in a bag, just kind of figuring out life, right? Thinking that how could it be right? How could Allah make me the way He made me, and then want me not to be free or not to live freely, or to express myself freely, right? And then from there on, I years and years and years, I followed Muslims for Progressive Values. The online content was incredible. The videos. Ani had a lot of videos about Islamic perception of freedom of expression, gender, sexual orientation. And then I started following folks, and I was still very uncomfortable at that time just because I hadn't, made my way through. So from there, I went into Nemo in a Bubble. So this is Nemo in a Bubble. And I found a lot of other progressive Muslims, Muslim sisters, Muslims that were LGBT identified, or they were just Muslims and, believed in humanity, right? Believed in equal human rights, wanting to live like a human being, right? Not put into a bubble or a plastic bag, right? So here I am, plastic, pushing my plastic bag while they were pushing their plastic bags and following these online resources. I was able to come out of, isolation and see, oh yeah, there is other people that are also in the same plastic bag just because they don't, they find their community to be a cult. And with that, just seeing that, even that process took a while. Just seeing that helped me push, and here I am today in Wild and Free. Here is Nemo in MPV's community in an ocean, and meeting new people with similar values yet different identities, and having a sense of respect for them. Next. Okay, so with that, a lot of people wonder, what is a community, right? So with that, I would like to give a little definition. So by sociological definition, a cult is a group with a religious or social group that is socially deviation from practice, while a community is a group that has something in common, such as norms, religions, values, identity. In a cult, critical thinking is opposed. It has rules. Rules are enforcement driven. It is controlled by leaders. Members are left out of discussions and making decisions. There is a limitation on opinions. It really is like a fish tank for Nemo, right? Everyone follows a little, and person that is leading the group gets a lot out of it, as it is considered to be, as the community is considering that person to be a leader, as an example, and everybody just feeds into the ego or a certain perception or a certain value of that leader. Whereas in a community, you're allowed to critically think, you're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to follow, you have principles instead of rules. You have, it's support driven instead of enforcement driven, right? You're connected by organizers, not ruled by a dictator. Your members are included. Diversity of opinion is appreciated so that we can all be, add our color, our value to that community. And it feels like that ocean for Nemo, right? So in a cult, everyone follows that one person and follows just a little bit of everything that one person says. And only that one person benefits from it. Whereas in a community, everyone contributes a little and everyone gets a lot out of it, because you find that support system, you find that drive, you find that encouragement that you would not see in a cult. Next slide. So as Ani mentioned, that we have 8 chapters across the US. If you're interested in creating a community, I would certainly help you. And you know, everybody in MPV board would help you create your community. So how to create a community? First, you need to connect with the people that are like-minded, right? You need to learn about them. You need to meet with them. You need to plan what you want to do, and then you need to organize. And that's how we build our communities. Next. Okay, so to start a community, the first step, I'm going to break it down into 6 easy steps. The first step is to find progressive Muslims, okay? And that you can do by following us on our Facebook page, our Twitter page, YouTube, Instagram. There's plenty of platforms out there. Whichever one you prefer using, you can use that platform and connect with the folks that are in the area. Once you connect with them, with those people, you want to have a sidetrack discussion with them and just be like, hey, I'm in the area, I'm so-and-so, and would like to know, what do you think about having a true community, right? A community that is based off of principles. The second step is you want to meet with them. You want to know what their preferred pronouns are. You want to know if they have any physical or mental disabilities that needs accommodation. You want to know what their perceptive idea is of a community. You also want to know how comfortable they are to be open. We respect the privacy of all our members, and this is very important for you when you meet with those 1 or 2 or 3 people to start a community, to really ask them what is their level of comfort. Do they just want to have a social group that can meet on a weekly or monthly basis and kind of talk about things? Do they want to have just an online community, or do they want to have a real community where they can actually do events and stuff like that? So it really depends on the level of comfort that they're okay with. Then you also want to know what their dietary restrictions are, because food brings everybody together. You do want to know, like, if they have a preference of eating halal, if they have any other dietary restrictions that you need to be aware of or not. So after having this conversation online, you can have step number 3, which is to meet with them. So you meet with them in person and see where do they want to take this community? How do they want to build, and what do they want to get out of it, right? Again, community is something where you input a little bit and everybody gets a lot out of it. And then step number 4 is very important. Step number 4 is you want to know where you want to meet, what time for your first event, where, how much is it going to cost, who are you inviting, and is that space progressive in your definition to accommodate that community needs, right? So you have gone to step 1, 2, and 3 to learn about these people. Now, when you want to start, planning your first event or your first get together, it doesn't have to be something massive, right? We don't, you don't have to, like mine was just a one-on-one conversation with, one of our co-founders, and that was it, right? We just met over coffee and then we planned for an event. Organize. In organizing, you need to understand that not everybody is an activist. Not everybody is, has full-time commitment to be actively a community organizer. So to accommodate those needs, you want to see what would work for your community. What do you want to do? What is the level of comfort that people are comfortable with? Because we are a pro-LGBT community and we fight a lot of things like women's rights and LGBT rights that a lot of traditionalist Muslim communities might not associate with. when you're doing this work, you want to understand what is that person's level of you know, openness. Like if they want to be, you know, what's their level of comfort. And then step number 6 is to build a community, and that we can certainly help you out with. So in order to do that, I would talk about that in a second. And before we do that, I will show you what my community looks like. Next page. Okay, so this is Muslims for Progressive Values Boston. We started off as a communication between me and a person here in the picture. And we became, our first event was an iftar 3 years ago. And that was an iftar of 18 people. And now, alhamdulillah, we are a community of 200 plus individuals in the greater Boston area. And this community uplifts Nemo every day. And brings so much color, so much life into the practice, and we do social events, we do networking events, we also have speaker events. Abdi had been a speaker for one of our events which was called Call Me American, and you know there's great. This is a great, one of the best things that I've done in my life, to actually see a community where, you know, I can meet with people that are about critical thinking, and they really want to have that sense of community and sense of belonging in that community. Okay, next slide. And with that, I would like to say that, you know, you can do this. All you have to do is to understand that that you know we are here for you. We're an organization that is run by volunteers, and we are looking forward to see you thrive just like Nemo did in that ocean. And if you want to swim freely and live freely, please feel free to drop us a line, and we will work with you one-on-one to help you develop your community. And with that, what I would like to do is I would like to introduce our next performer for today, Layla Higazi. Layla Higazi is a part of Muslims for Progressive Values New York and a musician for Extraordinaire. Please welcome Layla.
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me? You can.
Yes,
okay.
we can hear you.
Yay.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to do 2 songs today, but we're going to mash them up to make them time efficient. And I just want to explain a little bit before I start. So the first one is not my song. It's a cover. It's a song that I love. There are a lot of references to nature and just our beautiful universe. It just makes me feel God every time I hear it. And then the other one is an original song that I wrote with my twin sister. We're in a band called Higazi, which is on my shirt. And we basically wrote this song to make fun of xenophobia and all the ridiculous things that people say about immigrants and people from outside of the United States, or just any country that has an ethnic majority or even no ethnic majority. So with that being said, I will start. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel.
that seem to rise like vapor. You wonder what we know. Oh, you heard we're coming and we're bringing something through the back door. And you best start running, cause we don't cause nothing but uproar. So stay awake, we're here to stay. Oh, you heard we're coming and we're taking something that was once yours. Clouds of sweat, fingers rough, reaching for the stars way in the distance, like they belong to us. We multiply and stay too close, draining every drop left in the system, so that our seeds may grow. Oh, you heard we coming and we're bringing something through the back door. And you better start running, cause we don't cause nothing but uproar. So stay awake, we're here to stay. Oh, you heard we coming and we're taking something that was once yours. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and we're very delighted to have you. That was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who spoke today, and thanks to everybody involved in putting this together, Ani and Kandil and everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Layla. Wasn't that beautiful? That was so beautiful. Okay, so with that, we would like to move on to this next segment, which Kelly went for. Kelly is our MPV Board of Trustee Secretary, MPV Atlanta. She's the co-director of the chapter, and also an imam for Atlanta Unity Mosque, who trained me as an imam. And I'm very happy to have her here. Kelly is going to walk us through Muslims for Progressive Values online resources.
So I'm very emotional by all this. So yeah, anyway, we could just sit here for 5 minutes and I could cry and be blubbery, but I won't. We'll focus on the online resources now. I think a lot of times people forget that we have several online resources, and a lot of these resources originate from our website. So our website is mpvusa.org, and I think sometimes people just come and visit, but I've had people tell me that they've literally tried to visit every single page on this before they even talk to us. So I know there's people that are exploring things here. But on this site, you can, of course, get to know about us if you want to know more. If maybe you know us from our Facebook or in person, but you want to know a little bit more about what we do here, this is a great place to do that. From a programs perspective, these are the services that we offer that we'll talk about more when I talked about the imam training, and then also when Jamal later talks about our marriage services, and then David Oliver talks about the chaplain endorsement. So these are some of the programs that we have here. Obviously our advocacy, so this is all the stuff that we do from an advocacy perspective, our specific UN advocacy, and then our issue specific things. This is a really, really helpful area for people who, maybe you're having questions or other people have questions about how can we do this and still call ourselves Muslim? Well, a lot of times it's really nice to go straight to here and say, oh, if somebody says, how can you be queer and how can you be Muslim? We can go to the LGBTQI page here. And then in here, it talks exactly through that. So we've got like lecture series, and we have We have resource organizations, and then we also have information resources as well. So those are the types of things that you'll find on our different pages, and particularly in the issues area. So if you have things that you see that you would love to add to this, you are welcome to do so, but those are the issues. And then for resources, this is where you can find things like our annual reports. You can see what we're doing. Our friends, and so if you aren't near an MPV chapter, you can check out our friends page, and it'll show you people who are elsewhere in North America, also in Europe and other places in the world as well. Again, if you find organizations, you can always send this to us. And then we also have all of our newsletters, so you can keep up with the latest of what we're doing, our media, so anything that we've done with that. And then we also have an ongoing blog. You can contact us, and hopefully you'll feel so inclined at some point to join MPV, donate, or offer zakat here. So, but I just thought I'd give you a brief overview of this particular resource, and then you also have a search. On the side here, you can see that we are in several different places, so you can join us on Facebook. We're on Twitter, we're on Pinterest, which I think is fun. We're also on Instagram, which it's not listed directly here, but this is because this is the share part. And so those are other places that you can interact with MPV Global. And then as far as our local chapters, you can find us on Meetup, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Instagram, you can also find us on Twitter, and in WhatsApp groups and email. So we want to get a hold of you. It's hard, you know, because we're all volunteers and we're trying to get the message out. So as much as you can, please send that out. And you can come on our site and you can share things with people as well. So, yeah, so I look forward to talking a little bit more about programs like this a little bit later. But Kendall, I'll hand it back over to you, and we'll move on to Dr. Karam. So.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to have a word with Ani after this. About putting me to speak after Layla and Kelly and Kandil. That's absolutely not fair. No way. It's like a three whammy, not double whammy. But I've really enjoyed listening to you. And I'm a big fan of Ani myself. So it's a pleasure to be able to be here with you today. You don't need to know much about me. There's a bio right there. It says what I do right now. I had an organization called Religions for Peace, which is a 50-year-old organization that's basically every single religious leader representing a religious institution in different parts of the world. They come together. They came together 50 years ago because they felt that they needed to add a voice to the political din that was at that time in 1970 around nuclear proliferation, and they were very worried about the nuclear war, and they were very worried about poverty. They were basically very worried about what governments were doing at that time, and they felt that the religious voices needed to be in solidarity to speak for human rights, to speak for development, and to speak for peace. So they came together 50 years ago to set up Religions for Peace. Now, I think you'll realize that we're still in the same space now. What's changed is not so much the voices of the religious leaders coming together, which I think will always be extremely important and critical. But what has changed is you guys, is what you're bringing to the space. In terms of challenges, as the song, Layla's song clearly illustrated, as just new voices that are not just there to say, yes, wonderful, terrific, how wonderful, but really to say, what on earth do you think you're doing? And how is it that we can be different and think different and behave different and love different and still be perfectly amazing, needed, critical citizens, because human rights hasn't gone away and will not go away. And if anything, religious voices that uphold human rights are actually the most genuine religious voices out there. There's plenty of religious voices that will have a great deal of selectivity about human rights at best, or frankly, condemnation of human rights at worst. And I think those are the voices that have forgotten the roots of compassion, the roots of mercy, the roots of love that all religions speak to, and certainly Islam. But your voices are the ones that are trying to remind everyone that that human rights are at the root of faith, just as all faiths are at the root of human rights. We wouldn't have had the Universal Declaration of Human Rights had it not been for the fundamental values shared between all religions around the world. Those were the basis of the Human Rights Declaration as we know it today. But we forget that. And what you're doing is you're reminding us that, especially in the world of Islam, which sees, I think, the two most polarized tendencies ever, a tendency towards remarkable violence and a tendency towards remarkable compassion and love, happening simultaneously in very loud ways. Both sides are pretty loud. So your kind of loud needs to be even louder. You need many, many, many microphones. Each one of you is a remarkable microphone for movements of compassion and mercy and love. And that way, I think you're not only serving Islam and Muslims, I think you're serving the world. And it's very, very important for you to continue to do this work. Because yes, you indeed are something like a thorn in the flesh for most of the traditional religious institutions. And Ani said I could say that, so I'm saying it. Yes, your voices will be a thorn in the flesh of traditional religious institutions. By the way, not just Muslim ones, not just Muslim traditional institutions, pretty much a lot of traditional religious institutions. But that's precisely what we need. It's precisely what actually faith needs. And there's a difference between religious institutions and faith. And what you speak to and where you're coming from and what you're living and enacting is faith. And therefore you will be a thorn in the flesh for most of these religious institutions, because at some point you become an institution and you lose your soul. And what you're trying to do and what you are doing is you're making sure that that soul and the spirit remain alive. And we need you guys more than ever, more than ever. A lot of people are wondering what difference any of this is making to our world today in terms of the calamity that is called COVID-19. That isn't just hitting one part of the world, but hitting every single part of the world. It's not just hitting one person or one community or one faith or it's hitting everybody. And there are many theories about what's the value for now. What are we doing now? What can we do now different? You hear about community and coming together, and I loved what Kandil said, because it's almost a requirement to follow the steps he gave us, letter by letter. And indeed, we need to do that now, because now is the time to build that community more than ever. But it mustn't be a community characterized by the traditional differences that we always have between us, that religious institutions and political institutions are very, very much experts at. They're experts at creating divisions, actually. And we had come to a point in our political establishment, you can see it today, every day. If you watch any press briefing, anywhere in the world, by the way, you'll see that a lot of the political discourse is about division. It's about us and them. It's about we're better. It's about we have to protect ourselves. The discourse of divisions is precisely what has landed us to where we are today, because we divided nature from humanity. We forgot that we're completely dependent on the nature around us. Our religious institutions, by and large, forgot that our very existence as believers on this earth requires us to believe in the power of this earth, of the very earth on which we walk, we tread, we are fed, we breathe. We forgot because we were taught to divide between our existence and the earth around us. And I think you can see that the earth around us revolted and has been revolting for some time. But right now, this particular revolt was not just a tsunami or an earthquake in one part of the world, but this particular revolt is everybody impacted. It's the revolt of the earth that we have ignored. And by ignoring our earth, we have ignored not only one another, but we've ignored our faith. We've ignored the very basic tenets of our faith. And it is time to create a community, indeed, that enables us to realize that our roots as human beings lie in this very earth that we tread upon. And if the day we learn how to be faithful to our roots on this earth is the day we will learn how to be faithful to the links between our soul and the universe. And that is what Islam fundamentally teaches us. And that is what we need to be, as a faith that takes into account every other faith, as a faith that respects and pays obeisance to every other faith. That's what you are. That's what Muslims for Progressive Values are. Because those progressive values stand for appreciating that our roots are in the earth and our spirits are right up there, connected to everyone and to one another. And that's what you need to continue to be. Be no different than what you are today.
Be louder, be more convinced, be more confident, because you will be more loving and merciful. And it is that love and the mercy and the compassion for one another that we're missing today, hugely. Be what you are, be Muslims with progressive values. And thank you and bless you for what you do.
Thank you so much. With such inclusive remarks at the end, Dr. Azakaram, it was so beautiful to hear from, you know, another Muslim to say that your faith should be the one that should respect every other faith. I mean, this is a norm that we see across the globe and various communities of faith. I'm not, you know, I'm not just here to talk about our communities in particular, but various communities of faith. And then there is this conflict, or there is this mindset that, yeah, we are right, they're wrong. But if your faith doesn't allow you to do that, then you're in flesh. And I could not have heard a better phrase to kind of conclude that the chemistry around faiths and their interconnection. So for those of our viewers who are joining us now, Dr. Azakaram just spoke. Dr. Azakaram serves as a Secretary General to Religions of Peace International, which means that she serves a worldwide network of 90 nations and 6 regional inter-religious councils composed of religious leaders representing diverse institutions. Prior to that, Dr. Karam served in the United Nations for 2 decades, and she continues to teach at several universities, and we were very happy to hear from her today. With that, we're going to move on to the next segment of today's retreat, which is that we, as community leaders, often get, you know, the privilege or the room to speak, and oftentimes don't have, you know, this is a community, so what we do is we encourage our community members to have a voice in decision making, in just speaking up and you know, sharing their experiences and stuff like that. So because of that, we thought that why not we just you know, incorporate community members in our virtual retreats as much as we do in our in-person retreats. So with that, I would like to welcome Noor Suleiman. Noor Suleiman is an American lawyer with a Kuwaiti heritage, and has been a very active member and a contributor to Muslims for Progressive Values in Boston. Please welcome Noor.
Hi, Kandil. Thank you so much for organizing this and inviting me. I feel, you know, I just feel very inspired, and I am incredibly humbled by your stories and your thoughts. So before Muslims for Progressive Values, I never felt welcome in a mosque, especially when I moved to the United States from the Middle East, because I found the mosques here to actually be more conservative than they are back home. And I always felt like an outsider as a queer person with progressive beliefs and a commitment to universal human rights. So since joining, I felt more connected to the faith than I ever have been. This is the first time I've really felt comfortable in a Muslim community in America, and that is something that I cherish. And one of my favorite moments, you know, just from the past winter holiday season was sitting around a table and sitting around the table with our congregation and putting together donation parcels and even exploring the significance of Jesus in Islam. And I thought that was such a unique, wonderful experience. A surprising side effect, I think, of joining this congregation has been that it's rekindled my curiosity about, you know, academic and philosophical religious matters, looking at religious text and history and trying to reinterpret the text from a feminist and progressive perspective is something that I try to do now much more actively. I believe that it is important to challenge the very foundational traditional beliefs of conservative Islam, like the concept of wilaya and qawama, that men in heteronormative marital relationships have control over their wives, that brothers and fathers also have the last say in the way a woman runs her life, either by law or by tradition. And also, you know, where a woman can physically even go. It's like a complete restriction on the right of travel and the right to make one's own choices. Again, this can be either by law or by tradition of that particular family unit. And I also think that it's extremely important at this time to challenge other norms, you know, homophobia, transphobia, men being the only people that are allowed to lead prayer and be the kind of source of religious thought. And I really believe that progressive congregations like ours are the future. I think that if we don't change, the faith will be alienating as I think the moral paradigm of the entire world is kind of shifting to something that is more inclusionary and progressive. I think as a whole, the arc of history is kind of showing us that morality really is changing and what is acceptable is changing. And we need to be a part of that. I think that change does take time, but I do believe that congregations like ours create something very important as a way to challenge patriarchal, homophobic, and conservative beliefs. I think that rethinking authority itself in Islam is really important, but I think that also rethinking the concept of community is important as well, as something that we can do in the here and now. So I think that this is the transformation that, you know, that the faith really needs. And we can't move forward as a community again. Like if we continue to subscribe to, you know, outdated, exclusionary, draconian ways of practicing Islam. And honestly, I feel like we're really doing something here to kind of fight that, to fight those norms. And I feel very lucky and blessed to be part of this wonderful community. Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you. Thanks, Kundu. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Noor. Thanks so much for coming and joining us in such short notice. And very delighted to have you as a part of our community. And for those of you who don't know, not only that she's an excellent lawyer, but she's also an artist who makes beautiful pieces of Middle Eastern art for us so that we can raise some money for our chapter. And I cannot thank you enough for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we would move on to the next segment of our retreat. In this segment, what we're going to talk about is we're going to touch on some of the stories of honor killing right here in the U.S. And for that, we have our next presenter, Naseem, who is an MPV coordinator.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much, Gundil. As he mentioned, I am the MPV LA Community Coordinator, and I'm here to talk about the honor killing in America. And putting faces and stories to the honor killings that have been, to those who have been victims of such horrendous crime. According to the UN, according to the United Nations, there's an estimate that 5,000 women are killed every year around the world. 27 of those women are killed here in the United States. While that may seem such a small number in comparison to other crimes that have happened here in the United States, we have to understand the complex and understand how controlling the honor culture is and what restricts these numbers to justifiably present and represent these women who have been killed because of this horrific crime. Before I dig deeper, I would like to share with you, sorry, I should have said next slide. That is my absolute apology. Before I move forward, I would like to share with you guys two stories of those women who have been killed, and actually here in America. There is the story of Noura Malaking here in Phoenix, Arizona. She was only 20 when her dad waited for her outside, waiting to kill her because she had ran away in refusal and protest of an arranged marriage. The second story is Sarah and Amina. Sarah was only 17 and her sister was only 18. This was here in Texas. Their only crime was their protest and wearing jeans and saying that they do not want to go in arranged marriage. When their dad noticed that they have resisted this, he went ahead and talked them into it. Because of women being conditioned to understand and be controlled, these girls went ahead and trusted their own father. As they sat in the back of the taxi cab, their dad shot them 11 times as they were calling and talking to a police dispatcher on the phone. Both these cases were here in the United States, one in Arizona and one in Texas. I would really like to emphasize, just so that we can understand the complex and how complex and horrific these crimes are and should not be ignored, nor should they push back by the minimal number of it being just another 27 women who are killed. Honor should not be dismissed as a radical act. I truly believe that is such a disadvantage that can be done to other women. To these victims who have been perpetrated and who have been victimized by their own families, it should not be dismissed as the other problems. This happens here in the United States. To understand honor killing, what drives a mother and a father to kill their own kids right with their own hands? Some of these victims have been strangled, not shot. I truly believe that women who have been shot, when a crime is shot, it is less personal. It takes very, very dark person to go ahead and strangle and look their daughter in the eye. I very passionate about this subject, as you can see. To understand that honor, I would like to represent, if you can just go to the next slide, Kelly. So there is a driving force of honor. Before I go forward, there's a system. I am a strong believer that a system needs to be driven, and there is 3 umbrellas of every system. For this one, there's expectations or roles, honor, and community pressure. So as women and men in the family, they are groomed at a young age. Women are made to be obedient. Women are meant to be obedient, and men are the gatekeepers. Women are simple things as obedience does not necessarily mean as generally just saying yes. Obedience in these culture are more likely to be, you face consequences for things that we take for granted. For example, simple as talking to a guy in a cashier, going to Starbucks. A lot of these things are faced with consequences because in honor culture, a woman is a property. She's a representative of what her family is in the community. She's well protected because of that. It is not because she's just a daughter. Honor is valuable. It is not just a simple thing as we say, this is my honor, I am honored. In the honor culture, it's actually tied to social status and wealth. Furthermore, it pushes the community to pressure that family, into doing everything that they can to isolate that family. For example, some families, if you are in the village or anything like that, they may lose their wealth. They lose because of losing who they are in the community. The UN released a statement that says that actually explains this really, really well. It says, these cultures situate a man's honor in the purity or modesty of his female relatives. They place such a high importance on a family cohesion under control, under the leadership of a man, such that the man will feel shame when his control is lost. Putting such conditions on a man at a young age, and the same thing at a young woman, except for the fact that they are they're separate sides of a spectrum. One is a perpetrator and the other one is a victim. One is being protected and controlled, the other one is a controller. I myself, I come from that culture. I remember, however, while I have not been a victim, I was also taken out of school when I was in 6th grade, and I realized the pressure that the community put. I realized the community and the pressure they put on my father in 2012 when I was taken out of school. It was such a hard time for me because it was not the first time that I was taken out of school, but it was the first time that I realized that I can actually protest, and this is not fair. Because like I mentioned, you're conditioned to just say yes. You're conditioned to not question. As I sat there on my prayer rug and I cried and asked him why, he looked at me with tears filling his eyes. What can I do for you, Nasim? This is just the way it is. That is when I realized that the problem is beyond him and beyond myself. Honor culture and honor violence is way bigger than just another domestic abuse case. If we can move to the next slide. Thanks, Kelly, appreciate it. Domestic abuse honor violence is not the same as domestic abuse. So for me, I would like to point that out. The reason why I say that is because it comes in 4 phases. So, for example, when women are perceived a threat, they are taken out of society. For example, myself, I was taken out of school. It wasn't because I brought my family dishonor. It was simply because my family was so afraid that I would bring them shame, and the guilt was already inside me. So I was conditioned to say yes and continue with it. That is the first difference. The second is there's a system behind it. When a female protests, she is then placed into a forced marriage, similarly to Noor and Sarah and Amina. Lastly, it is honor killing. So there's phases and there's times that we can intervene. And the minute that we start understanding and studying the culture is the minute that we can actually stop it and do something about it. I am not saying this problem can be solved tomorrow, nor can it be solved the next day. It is just time for us to recognize there is a problem here and it's systematically wrong. And in order for us to fix it, we must understand the system. And honor killing is dismissed. Perpetrators do not feel guilty. It is not a crime of passion, because in a crime of passion, as you are sitting there for trial, some actually feel bad and there's a sense of regret. And this is justifiable. Men actually feel from this culture feel that it is their right, they're entitled to this. Therefore, they feel like they have to act upon this. It is completely justified. You can go to the next slide, Kelly. Thank you. So you're probably sitting there, as I have probably brought darkness to this great retreat where we listen to Layla and everyone else speak, and here I am bringing you back to this really horrific crime and acts. But I really want to sit here and talk about it because I really think it's important. Every time I've spoke about this, I've gotten the same reaction. Really? This happens in America? It is almost like there is a certain assumption that as soon as you are in America, you're automatically free. For women in honor culture, that is not true. There are privileges. I had to earn my privileges. I had to earn my rights. And now I am that person that reiterates to my friends the amazing right to be able to drive and go to Starbucks. You have to understand and be aware of it. That is what you can do. Bring awareness to it, understand the problem, and educate. Educate, educate, educate. I cannot emphasize that enough. The reason why I am today is because I fought for my education and I got to see what it's like. I got to see the resources, and it was probably the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. And I am dedicated to make this easier for those who choose to leave and create a system, but I do need at least people to become aware of it. The next thing is advocate. Advocate in any way you can. If you see a story, then advocate it, repost it. We live in a time where you can easily repost things. You can easily advocate. Use it for that. Understand it. Google is your best friend. Utilize it. The next thing is support. It is not as easy as just leaving the family. There's so much more that comes to it. There is in the UK, there's an advocate. She's actually Jasminder, and her name is Jasminder, and she has the most amazing book. I truly recommend it. It's called Girls of Shame. And she states the feeling and the guilt that women carry as they leave their family, because it is not a hard decision. You're conditioned to understand and conditioned to believe that your family responsibility and how they feel about things and their health is on you. She states, it is like me saying for you, it is like me asking for you to wake up tomorrow morning and never seeing a member of your family ever again, or never seeing your familiar surroundings and everything you loved and being made to feel it is your fault. And with that, I would like to add that I'm leaving you with the responsibility to spread the word, to bring awareness, educate, advocate, and support. Thank you. And after that, I would like to introduce our next speaker and kick it back to Kelly, who is going to talk to us about imam training.
Yes, thank you so much, Naseem. So this is my favorite topic because I love getting to serve as an imam for this community. I'm very, very lucky. So I put my community here because that's what's fun. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about what imam training is in our community, how it can, how can it happen? So just as a background about imams in our community, we were very lucky to be able to partner with the Unity Mosque system out of Toronto. So we have a very helpful religious resource, and it was, and so we always have a support system in place. So if you are interested in becoming an imam, not only do you have all the MPV based imams, but you also have this wonderful Unity Mosque system as well. In 2011, our first imams were ordained here. So we have to partner. So the Unity Mosque system is, I would say, our religious governing body. So they're liturgical, all the ritualistic type stuff. Whereas MPV, because we are the organization that has the nonprofit seal in the United States, we do the ordaining. So when I say we, I consider myself we MPV and we Unity Mosque as well. So we were first ordained in 2011. Imam Trina, who is in the Atlanta area, of course, Ani, and then myself. And I think Frank may have been back then as well. So I can't remember when you got ordained, Frank. Anyway, so we've been around for a while. And then we also get to work with other imams, not just in our community itself, but are affiliated with our community. So sometimes our imams go to school, they get their Master's of Divinity, they go on to get their PhD in something. You have somebody like Imam Dai, who has like lots and lots of different degrees, and certainly we need and want people who go the scholar route for imams as well. But our community, being the way that it is, has a huge need for imams who are volunteer-based and who go through basic training for things like ritual leading and marriage services and funeral services and whatnot. So we not only recognize and encourage people who go the scholar route, but we also want to encourage people to feel empowered to be leaders in their own communities as well. Because as we know, we're lucky in the Islamic community because our imams don't have to go through tons and tons and tons of training. We just have to be recognized by our community as a leader. And what does that mean? So first of all, imams in our community, we serve God. So we're called. I can't think of a better term for that. where we're called to serve God and to serve our community. So that's first of all. And then secondly, we help lead rituals. So when we're leading rituals, we're not just leading rituals in that we're always in charge. In our Unity Mosque system, we try to empower the community to lead as well. So we want as many people as possible to be able to and feel empowered to lead prayer, to give khutbahs, to call the adhan, so we want people to feel that way and feel empowered. So we help lead rituals, we help teach those rituals to our communities. And then we get to do stuff that clergy gets to do in the U.S. So we also provide marriage services, which is the fun part of the job, where we get to do that. And Jamal will be talking about that in a minute. And then we also get to help with funeral services as well. A lot of times the people that we serve in our community are people who will not and cannot be helped by other mosques in our area for various reasons. Sometimes it's because they're in an interfaith relationship. Sometimes it's because they identify as queer or trans. And sometimes it could be as simple as somebody has been previously divorced and the community doesn't want to serve those people. So funeral services is something that we can also provide. Like in Atlanta here, we provide both in-person and virtual janazah. And so what we do is we've partnered with a funeral home in the area, and they take care of all the ritual stuff and everything, and then we can provide the funeral services. So you're not having to do everything all by yourself. A primary function is also to listen to people and then hook into that network and find those resources for people. We can sometimes we can't help everybody, and we don't need to help everybody. We're training as an imam, we're almost like a triage person. So we have to triage and find the best resources. So that's what we do as far as imams go. So what we're going to offer, so Kandil and I are coming up with a training where because we have several people both in the MPV community and even outside of the MPV community who are interested in this type of training. And so we train people both to, and if you're not ready to take on everything, we do train people to just be officiants to begin with. And then as you're ready, we try to encourage you to take on more things as well, though we do have people who are only in just officiants in our community as well. So look out for information where we'll conduct training. We were going to offer this in person, but this year we will probably default to virtual. Luckily, we've done this previously, so we have lots of opportunities with that. So anybody who's interested, you can reach out to myself, you can reach out to Kandil, you can reach out to El Farouk, because he will talk you into it like he did me. And so hopefully you will find a lot of help if you feel called that way. So in tandem to being an imam where you serve specifically to the community, we also have a chaplaincy program as well. So I'm going to kick it back over to Kandil to introduce the next speaker, but you'll see hand in hand, but there's a little bit of a difference. So if you are wondering what's the difference between an imam and a chaplain, then this is the segment for you. So.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I'm very delighted for you to share all these resources with us all today. So our next speaker is David Oliver King. David Oliver King is a chaplain with Crossroads Hospice in Palliative Care since 2013. He graduated with a Master's of Divinity, specializing in Black Church and African Diaspora Studies, followed by a year-long chaplain residency at St. Mary's Medical Center in Huntington. Oliver has 3 years of congregational leadership experience and 2 years experience as a religious education director. Please welcome Mr. Oliver.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm gonna assume that's okay. Everything I'm going to say is on the website, but I want to go over some things real quick so we're all on the same page on exactly what a chaplain is. I've been working as a hospice and palliative care chaplain for about 6.5 years. And additionally, I also teach medical ethics and spiritual care to nurses and social workers at a local college. So what is a chaplain? A chaplain is a professional who represents a specific faith tradition, operating often within a specialized setting. A specialized setting could be hospice, could be hospital, could be a prison setting, could be military. All these different areas are considered specialized ministry settings. So a chaplain is a professional. So as a hospice chaplain, I'm part of the healthcare team. And so I meet with medical directors and nurses and social workers to put together plans of care to help provide my aspect of the healthcare role, which is spiritual care for the well-being of the patient. So in order to do so, I have to be able to provide chaplaincy services to anybody, not just people of one particular faith, but of any faith or even no faith at all. So specialized ministry settings often will use one chaplain to cover a whole wide range of interfaith spiritual needs. An ecclesiastical endorsement is what we provide, is a legal document that states that the endorsed chaplain is spiritually, educationally, and professionally qualified to represent Muslims for Progressive Values in a specialized ministry setting. And that endorsement needs to be able, that the endorsee needs to be able to minister to a diverse group of people. So some of the things that are involved in the application process for chaplaincy is, the candidate provides a spiritual autobiography, so we kind of know where they've come from and where they've been, not to ensure that we're a good fit. They would need to provide transcripts both from college and graduate school or equivalent, and documentation of clinical pastoral education. Clinical pastoral education is sort of like the building blocks of chaplaincy. And so if you have somebody, let's say, that has 1 unit of CPE versus somebody that has 4 units of CPE, that's kind of the difference between like an LPN versus an RN. The more units of CPE, typically the better. You can get to a point where it's diminishing returns, but they're really important. And I usually like to explain CPE is like boot camp for chaplains. So imagine, you're in a CPE group for the first time, talking about an encounter that you had with a patient or somebody, and you're talking about it with your peers. The whole point is for your peers and your CPE supervisor to like really peel back the layers to make sure that you're providing good, solid care. So half of the CPE program is dealing with your own emotional and spiritual baggage, so you can properly help others. And then the other half of CPE training is the skills that you would use to provide good quality pastoral care. For example, imagine when you're at your worst and you're feeling bad, or you're suffering, and you go to talk to somebody about it, and as you're telling your story, they cut you off and say, well, let me tell you about my life. I got it much worse than you do. And then they start talking about their life, and suddenly you're sitting there going, what just happened? So CPE helps you be aware of that, because there are people out there that have no idea that they're doing that kind of thing. So CPE likes to, pull back and find out all all the things that you're doing wrong. So if you have a problem being vulnerable, CPE is probably not a good idea, and chaplaincy is probably not a good idea, because they will just look at your life very closely. For example, when I was in my CPE program, I was in 4 units. Halfway through, you have like a 3-hour interview, and you're meeting with all these people on the committee that's responsible for allowing you to progress. And there were a couple of people that I had never met before, but they had read all the information that I had to submit to that committee. to allow me to progress to the next 2 units of CPE. And after about an hour or so, one of the women on the committee said to me, "I think you need to work on your relationship with your mother." And I thought, what? And afterwards, I'm in the residence office where all the other CPE residents were, and I was venting about, this person doesn't know me. How could she say that? And then after, a couple of weeks of reflecting on it, I realized she was right. I did, because it was getting in the way of my pastoral care. So CPE, like I said, is like boot camp for chaplains, and it's very important. Also, letters of recommendation. We require people to have people that know them, vouch for their character, and authorization to conduct a background check. And there are sections on the website that detail what we're looking for with that spiritual autobiography, how to submit transcripts and their documentation and their letters of recommendation. I can go on longer if you want me to, or if that's sufficient, if anyone has any questions. I don't know how I can see that, for everybody's muted, but.
So we'll take all the questions towards the end. Is that okay?
I'm probably gonna get off the phone here soon, but anybody can email me the link. One person's already emailed me, and I've answered that. Anybody else who wishes to email me, my email is linked chaplain@mpvusa.org, and I'll get back to them, sometime today or tomorrow at the latest.
Thank you so much, Oliver. The work that you're doing with our organization is very significant, and it plays a crucial role in developing us as a community, and also to help many others that benefit from this chaplaincy program. So we really thank you for being here today.
Well, glad to be here, glad to help.
Thanks. So with that, we will move on to the next part of our retreat. And with that, I would like to introduce our next performer, who is a Sufi poet. Please welcome Frank Harmir, who is also a co-director of MPV Columbus and Imam for Columbus Unity Mosque. Please welcome Frank.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, good. I have a habit of writing poetry as a form of meditation and as a form of understanding the Quran. And I'd like to recite for you 3 of my favorite poems, and they're based on parts of the Quran. The first is based on Al-Fatiha. O thou, source of all and all receiving, need of all and all relieving, judge of all and all redeeming. Of you alone are we in awe, on you alone do we rely. Bless us to be your blessing, curse us not to be your cursing. Ameen. Fatiha is said to be half of the Quran. Al-Ikhlas is also said to be half of the Quran. My rendering of Ikhlas, there's one through all extending, undependent and unending, undescendant and undescending, and all that comes to be comes alone by one intending. And when I first went through the Quran, I came across Al-Kursi 255, which is my favorite part of the Quran. And my poetic rendering of that is, O thou, O one through all extending, you alone are undependent and unending, you alone undescendant and undescending, and all that comes to be comes alone by your, oh, that was, I'm sorry, Nicholas. O thou who are the one unpartnered power, the incessant source of every hour, the eternally alive and self-derived, the untiring and ne'er retired, you arrange all in heaven's girth, and all is well upon the earth. None there is to hold control but you who own the whole. You know all that we can't see, know our past and yet to be, and we know not till you agree. Your power pervades all heaven and earth, and effortless preserves their worth. And in you alone must every soul find its source and gain its goal. And with that, I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I think as a part of our faith to connect with it, there is various aspect of it, and I think poetry through the essence of Sufism is very important. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to move on to our next segment, which is to help you understand what you can do to either be a part of our community or support the efforts that we have as an organization. Next slide. So Allah orders justice, kindness, and good conduct. Allah forbids injustice, immorality, and oppression. So a lot of Muslims unknowingly, donate their zakat and other things to organizations that show you videos on Facebook and all these big platforms of Muslims giving out food and all kinds of stuff to somebody in need. While I don't devalue their work, I think the work that they're doing is absolutely beautiful. There is a notion, right? There is a norm that the donations from as a part of our faith needs to go into a super religious organization. So for example, I was asked to throw in a couple of dollars every time we go to the mosque, and I would sit there and ask my dad, like, why are we giving money? And he would tell me, oh, this is for the good cause. And in my mind, I would think that, why are you throwing money here to this guy who is, I don't even know what he's saying. I don't even agree with anything that he's saying, but I wasn't allowed to ask a question. So with that, I'm like, first of all, why am I here? I rather pray behind my mother, who taught me all about Islam from like the most beautiful lens. Rather, I'm here among the group of people that I don't know, I don't recognize, I don't fit in. And here I'm asked to put in $5 of my weekly allowance into this jar, which God knows is going where. So with that, can we go to the next slide, please? I would show you where we are very transparent about the money that people donate to our organization. 17% of this, so where we use our financial contributions, a lot of people ask questions about like, where we're using the money that they're donating, right? So if you contribute to us as an organization, this is where we're going to, show it. In my 30 years of life, I've never seen a mosque or, a traditionalist organization to take, time to actually put together some numbers to share with their donors. So we reach globally. This is all in our newsletter and in our yearly report that could be accessed through our website, fully transparent, 100%. 55+ million people globally we touch online, whether they're using our online resources or watching some of the stuff that we are posting. This incorporates everything that we do online. 5,000+ influencers. So these influencers see our work, get influenced by it, and actually spread it out. So there are multiple branches that it's going out to the world through. 200+ local communities, and I think this is more of a number that is, per chapter. So we're reaching these local communities in the area to work with them, interfaith communities, communities that have, human values that we are in alignment with. We go to, we have a campaign, No Hate in My Faith, which is where community leaders can go and take a pledge to say that they're not going to preach any kind of hate. It's not just, hate against LGBT folks or women in a Muslim community, but it's all kinds of faith. We recognize that there is marginalization within Muslim communities. Among, I'm very privileged to be a Sunni, from a Sunni family, and a Sufi by practice, but if there is, I can only imagine how much difficulty I would have had to encounter if I was a minority within Muslim community. So through our MPV ambassador, we reach about 32,000 people, and this is just from last year, right? And then through a radio show, we have touched about 9.6+ million listeners and influenced them with the work that we have done. Next slide, please. So here is, again, we are being 100% transparent just to put our numbers out there, because oftentimes people are like, okay, well, what's going on, you know? Why am I having to donate, and where is this money going? The way I was raised, I always questioned where that money was going, and I never got the answer. Okay, so 30 years fast forward, here I am giving you answers of where it's used. So our expenses and our revenue and support that we get is roughly about $235,000 per year, and our expenses are $260,000 per year, because we do a lot more work than oftentimes our work is underappreciated. This is an organization where one full-time person works, which is Ani, a part-time person works, and everybody else, each one of us are volunteers. We spend our weekends, our nights, we are up, we work 12-hour days, we come home and we still go on to Facebook and update that post. We still go on and create events. COVID-19 is happening. We are dealing with our personal situations at home, but that's what we're worried about. We're worried about our MPV community. You know, we take out time from our weekends, our daily lives, just to give a space for progressive Muslims to have a voice. This voice is forgotten. This voice is nowhere else to be found. This voice is so important. This is so important. I'm so privileged to be a man in a Muslim household. I am so privileged to be a man, and I like to repeat it again. A lot of our prayers are woman-led, and a woman-led prayer, it does not mean that it is a woman-only prayer. Okay, a woman-led organization or a chapter does not mean that it's a woman-only organization or chapter. You see that across the board in other communities and comparatively more conservative communities. But here, it means that it is a movement for everybody to be in together, right? To hear the voices that we haven't heard for years, to hear those voices, to hear those stories, to bring those problems to the table that we have been shut, we have been quieted, we have been taped to speak about, right? This work is not easy. I'm being 100% honest with you all. This work is not easy. This work takes a lot of courage, a lot of strength, and only we as organizers know where that strength comes from. There's various ways that you can support us, and I'm going to talk about that in my next slide. So you can donate your zakat through our website, mpvusa.org, and we're going to share the link here on Facebook and as well as on Zoom. You can set the payments for a monthly payment or an annual payment of 2.5% or more. You can give your fitrana for this month, a holy month of Ramadan, and Eid al-Fitr, which is known for giving it to people that are underprivileged. And these are the ways that you can become a member and be involved in our community. If you don't have financial means to support us, offer services. Okay, we need people that can write for us, can write grants. We need volunteers that can update our Facebook pages. We need volunteers to be a bookkeeper. We need volunteers to run events and services for us. We need volunteers to help us find grants. So if you can't donate, please do one of these things. Find us a grant. Send us a grant that we could apply for. Help us apply for a grant, right? We are helping the most, I repeat, the most underprivileged in our community, okay? Our voices, our communities are examples for those underprivileged people that would not have access to it otherwise if we don't say it. A lot of people are afraid to donate or to do anything just because they don't want people to know that they're actively donating to us. you can go on Facebook and support it, and that transaction is going to show up as Network for Good, which is a registered nonprofit 501 status that would transact out of your account, so that your, you know, whatever safety concerns that you have, nobody knows that you're supporting a work that is so needed and has always been silenced because of various cultural reasons. Next slide, please. And with that, I would like to say that you can go onto our website and donate. Today, our goal is to reach $3,000 to meet our some of the work that we're trying to do during the holy month of Ramadan, during this COVID-19, to continuously provide virtual support to our folks in various communities. And you can also go to Facebook and please donate. You can donate your zakat, your fitrana, and all these things. And don't go by the pictures that people are showing to, just for you to feel bad that there is somebody out there who is, you know, in need. Our work impacts so many people in our community that it goes far beyond you and I can imagine, okay? And the support that we get is very underappreciated, because all it takes is somebody to enter our name and they can use all our resources, and we are very thankful for that, right? But in return, we don't have the financial support that, you know, other people, other communities, or other groups can obtain, just because of the nature of the work that we do, right? So please pick up your phones, donate your zakat, your fitranas. You can donate at any time. You can donate through Facebook or through our website directly. If you do it through the website, it will allow you to set up your automatic payments of annual and monthly things. So 2.5% of your income, as from an Islamic perspective, if you're Muslim and you're trying to donate, it's 2.5% of your annual or monthly income, plus the assets that you own. You have to donate 2.5% of it. It's a fraction of it. And please do it today. With that, I am going to, I'm very thankful for you all to be here with us today. So what we do is we do a lot of interfaith stuff. So all our chapters, they're very connected with local communities, because these are the bridges that we really need to build. We need to build. Islam teaches us to build those bridges, to love our neighbors. And if we have this in the back of our head that their religious beliefs conflicts with our religious belief, and we can't have a sense of respect and meet halfway through, then we need to question that. We really need to question that. Our next, the next segment is basically about interfaith work that Muslims for Progressive Values in New York has been doing. And what we have here is we have Maya Liggett from who is a co-director of MPV Boston, and we have Sunita Vishwanath from MPV New York, who is a partner from an organization called Sadhana. So Sadhana has been an organization that's around since 2011. Sadhana has been building progressive Hindu movements. We practice our sadhana, or faith, in action by advocating for those social justice principles we believe are the heart of Hinduism. Ektada, oneness of all. Ahimsa, non-violence. Seva, service. We empower Hindu American communities to live out the values of our faith through service, community transformation, and targeted advocacy work. Please welcome Maya and Sunita.
Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Maya from MPV New York. Sunita on with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Sunita.
Hi.
So we just wanted to talk a little bit about the interfaith work that our chapter has been doing in New York. But Sunita, would you like to speak first about the work that Sadhana has done?
Sure. Thank you, all of you, for having me. Can you hear me properly? Great. Great. So I'm Sunita Vishwanathan. I'm one of the co-founders of Sadhana, Coalition of Progressive Hindus. And I remember somewhere in the early few years of Sadhana, we were founded in 2011, like Maya said, I was up in the morning listening to the radio, and there was early morning NPR segment on Muslims for Progressive Values. And it was a CD that you all had made. And I just jumped out of my seat thinking, oh my God, it's like a Muslim sadhana. Let me find them. Of course, you're way ahead of us. And, you know, just looking at what you're doing today and just what last 20 minutes or so I've been listening, I'm so inspired by what you all are doing. Sadhana aside, I'm also in my life, I'm co-founder of a women's organization called Women for Afghan Women. And I have done, it's 20 years old, and I've done work shoulder to shoulder with Muslim men and women on the front lines of human rights in Afghanistan. And the work that I am doing now to build a progressive Hinduism, there is no question about this, and I say this all the time. It is out of the inspiration of the Afghan men and women that I have been lucky enough to work with. It's been the most meaningful work, and seeing our staff and the other people in our community in Afghanistan especially, who go to work every day not knowing if they'll come home because they work for Women for Afghan Women, and you say, why do you do this work? Without any exception, they will say, it's my duty as a Muslim. And that being the work that I was fortunate to be a part of, with the backdrop of what was happening in the Hindu community here and India, meaning the growth of Hindu nationalism, Hindutva, and the extremely more and more entrenched conservative thinking, including Islamophobia, in the spaces where I live and work and love, my family spaces, community spaces. It was 2000 for me when I just needed to kind of no longer just be a secular individual, but name myself as a Hindu doing pretty much all the same work, social justice work. And the minute you identify as a Hindu, it just problematizes everything for people on the left and the right, which to me means we should keep going. And so that's my sort of backstory. So Hinduism, the Hinduism at least that I was raised with, is interfaith and pluralistic and love-centered and justice-centered in its heart. This Hindutva is the diametrical opposite to anything that I would recognize as Hinduism. The oldest text, the Rig Veda, which is arguably 5,000 years old, maybe more, some Wikipedia page said more like 5,000 to 8,000 years old. I don't know how old, but it's our oldest text. And it has these two shlokas, verses. One is Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. The truth is one. Wise men call it by different names, which to me says that the truth is one, but we have many, many, many different paths to that truth. And right here in this moment, we have a Hindu sister to progressive Muslim brothers and sisters. And the other one that I love is Ano Badra Kartavo Yantu Vishvataha, which means let noble thoughts come from all directions. This is in the Rig Veda. This means keep your mind open, that you don't know from where wisdom is going to come to you and reach you. And if you shut off any avenues of thought, if you are not an open-minded person, you will lose out on those opportunities for truth and understanding. So I'm inspired by these teachings. And then, you know, that's from the Rig Veda, but most Hindus don't even read the Rig Veda. They just are taught, even from the time that we're children, we are taught we are all one. We are taught that whatever is God is, or divine, is equally and identically present in every single person. It doesn't say only Hindus. In every single part of the universe. It goes beyond humans even. So if that's the teaching of Hinduism, then there is no other. there's no, if I hate you, then I hate me. It's so simple. Children know this. And so when I first started out doing this work, I was very nervous because I didn't think I could be, speaking as a Hindu. But actually it turns out that the people on the side of hate don't know very much at all, and they can be beaten within seconds in any debate without too much education, because it's all so actually simple. I'll say that we in Sadhana, we have enjoyed a really beautiful relationship with MPV New York. We organize, we do very, I feel very, what you all do is like an aspiration for us. We're all volunteer and we don't have any money, but we still do whatever we can, mostly in New York, but also other parts of the country. But it's really similar. We have these satsangs, which are our worship space, our inclusive, egalitarian, earth-honoring worship space. And our God, the deity that we pray to, is Ardhanarishwara, which is the ultimate symbol of inclusion. It's a deity that's half male, half female, Shiva and Parvati in one. And our priestess is a queer woman, young woman, Pratima Dubey, who has a voice and presence of an angel, and you just are in her presence and the rest is just completely transformational. And we've done our satsangs we've done one or two on 9/11 when we lift up Hindu-Muslim unity, and then during Ramadan. By the way, Ramadan Mubarak, I meant to say right at the beginning. And the last Hindu-Muslim satsang that we did together, the sister from MPV, she just took our work into another level. She took it to another level, because when the moment came to break fast, she sang a beautiful prayer, and her voice really, music just has this way of taking us into places that mere words cannot. And then she led prayer in one part of the room, and all the Muslims in the room went and prayed behind her. And some of the Hindus had grown up with close with Muslims and knew how to do the prayer. So a group of Muslims and Hindus prayed behind a woman, and it was all very, very beautiful. And I was just sort of enjoying it all. And then when we came back into our circle, there was a gravity to that coming back together in circle, and I couldn't understand what had happened. And then when we went around the circle and shared, it turns out that the Muslims in the circle who weren't necessarily part of MPV, they had never been in a setting where a woman had led prayer. It wasn't just transformational for us, it was transformational for the Muslims in the room. And that's just one of so many examples where sadhana is doing work which is out of the box, where we don't mind if we stay tiny, but we will lead with our values and our faith. And we are very lucky to have a partner organization like you all to inspire us. And there's so much pushback against us from the left, because in the left, especially in the South Asian arena, the fact that we are Hindus itself is a problem, because we are accused of being Islamophobic and casteist and many other things. So the left is not our friend. And from the right, obviously, we are a threat. So given all the pushback and hate that we receive from so many sides, being in spaces with people of our own faith and other faiths for whom, this label is less important than the love that we have for each other. That's what sustains us and fuels us. And so, yeah, I'll just end by saying thank you so much. I cannot tell you how honored I am to be with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunita. We at MPV New York really treasure the relationship we have with you guys. And we hope it continues for many, many more years. We are so thankful. I just wanted to go over briefly some of the other interfaith events that MPV New York has partnered and worked together for. We have done scriptural reasoning in partnership with the Congregation of Beit Simchat Torah, where we looked at excerpts from the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran, and looked for the similarities and differences in the scripture. We also have done many interfaith events that were very casual, where a lot of our members are in interfaith families, interfaith partnerships. We make events that are explicitly open to those members so that they can come together and share their experiences. We have been asked to speak at various organizations such as the Sacred Heart Church, who has a subset of LGBTQ Catholic members who are looking to learn more about Islam because they just didn't have much knowledge about it, and hoped MPV could enlighten them, especially given the negative light that Muslims have been portrayed, especially in regards to people who are gay, even just outside of the Muslim community. We have also coordinated with the Riverside Church on the west side in Upper Manhattan for iftars, and also have organized actually, sorry, I think that's about it. But thankfully, a lot of our membership feels welcome to come to our events, regardless of whether or not our events are interfaith or not, given how open we've been about making sure our community is welcome. And as Cynthia was saying, non-denominational and egalitarian. We'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody would like to learn more about these events. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Maya, so much. Love to see the work that you do. You can, if you look at the annual report, you can see lots and lots of pictures from MPV New York and their interfaith stuff. Speaking of interfaith, we're going to go into talking through our officiant program. So this is headed by Jamal Mahmood. I consider him an imam, and he's also an officiant. Jamal Mahmood has conducted ceremonies as an imam with Muslims for Progressive Values since 2016. He is credentialed as a wedding officiant through the Celebrant Foundation and Institute. Jamal is of Pakistani and Dutch descent. He grew up in the United States in an interfaith household with a Muslim father and a Christian mother. His primary occupation is as a financial planner, and he conducts approximately 25 nikahs per year. He and his wife have been married since 2003, and they have 2 children together. Jamal is experienced with working with couples that are non-traditional within the Muslim community and with traditional couples that seek a progressive and inspiring nikah presentation that will be enjoyed both by Muslim and non-Muslim audiences alike. So welcome, Jamal. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Hi, Kelly. Thank you, Ani. And it's nice to meet everybody and get to address you. I know we're a little bit behind time, so I'm going to keep things a bit short, and I'm going to dive into a couple of interesting stories from my adventures as a wedding officiant. That's probably been the best part of this, because Ani, she talked me into doing this a couple of years ago. I told her I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not sure I'm cut out for this kind of work. And she said, "Oh, sure you are." She believed in me. After doing it a couple of times and seeing how much the need was there for it, and getting the chance to meet so many interesting families, I really was hooked on the experience, and I could see that it was really a very interesting niche that I was able to fill by doing it. Obviously a lot of interfaith weddings that I've been privileged enough to do. I've gotten to do probably one of the most interesting ones was a Muslim Hindu wedding where I was on stage, and I've done several of them where you have a representative of the other faith there. I've been up there with a rabbi, with a Hindu priest, with a with a father or a deacon. There was one Hindu priest that wasn't able to or wasn't willing to participate in person, but the Hindu family, it was really important for them to have him there. So they had a big screen TV. I was up there with a big screen TV, and my job was to press play on his video recording when he did his address. So that was pretty interesting. But the audience, they really, you know, the good thing is he wasn't there to take credit for the ceremony. So at the end of it, I got to meet a lot of people in the audiences, and everybody was very complimentary. They were happy, and they said this is how Islam should be, where it's respecting and appreciating all faiths. There was, of course, we do our share of LGBTQ weddings. One very interesting one that I did, of course, they're always the most beautifully decorated ones, not to push the stereotype, but there was one on a beautiful farm out in the country of New York. And I get out there and I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. And I see two people that I know there from the regular mosque. And so then we meet each other and we talk. And obviously we were surprised to see each other there. And but they were more surprised than I was when they found out I was officiating the wedding. So that was a pretty good story. One more sober one, obviously we've got some that are kind of lighthearted and progressive, and you know, progressive Muslims getting together. There are some, of course, that are more difficult situations. And I thought of this one when I was hearing Nassim's presentation earlier about honor situations. There was one wedding that I did for a 33-year-old lovely girl, 33-year-old girl, was marrying an Orthodox Greek Christian, and I had to meet the parents, which I haven't really. It's probably not the smartest thing, but I was like, let me go talk to her parents, and I went to their home and all that stuff to try and convince them. And it was clearly, it was probably one of the most dangerous situations I've been in, because the father was a very threatening man. The wife was very much under his thumb. I don't know what exactly was going on there, but it wasn't a pleasant home to be in. And in the end, we were able to get the wedding pulled off. The father still didn't attend, but I actually did it jointly at their mosque and the local imam was there, and this was one of the most amazing things. The local imam, knowing everything that I was doing, knowing my whole background, he was as traditional looking an imam as you can imagine. And he said to me in his broken English, he said, "Thank you, you did a good thing today, because the most important thing is to help sister so-and-so, and we have to keep that family together." So it was not religiously dogmatic. This was an imam that was very pragmatic, and he knew that his job was to take care of families, not to uphold a certain fidelity to some principles that he imagines are or not a part of Islam. So that was very amazing. Probably another strange, and the last story I'll leave you with really quickly is, and this was a very touching situation. There was a couple that I did a wedding for where the family was from Saudi. They flew in, and they flew in and attended the wedding. And about a year later, I heard from them again. And wouldn't you believe it, the mother of the bride was on her deathbed, had cancer, and she already was sick at the time of the wedding, but now she was really on her deathbed. And the father, Saudi man, calls me and said, "Listen, Jamal, we don't know any other imam here. We love what you did for our daughter. Can you come and read her last rites?" Obviously, I had no idea how to do that. I had to make something up, and I prepared a lot for it. But I went there, and I think, alhamdulillah, God willing, it went the way they had hoped that it did. Bottom line is, you really get a chance to make a difference in this situation, and so we're happy to do this for obviously anybody that's part of our progressive Muslim community, and we're also looking for other people who have an inclination to do this. So if anybody wants to know how to perform these weddings, talk to me, talk to Ani, talk to Kelly. I'll just show you really very quickly what our, actually, no, I'm not going to do that because it's going to mess up the technology. But if anybody wants to know more, you all know where to find me. But thanks for listening. Okay. Thank you.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Thank you, Jamal, for sharing the highlights and mostly good, beautiful stories of your officiant services. I'm really happy to be an officiant myself, and it really has contributed, enriched my life to make other people's lives happy and beautiful. So I'd like to invite a couple that I wed last year. Zara is a Muslim woman and her husband Jay is Hindu, and their wedding was officiated by myself, and I would like to invite Zara and Jay to tell us about their experience in finding an inclusive Islamic officiant to officiate their interfaith marriage last year. Zara, Jay, on to you.
Thank you, Ani. Ani wanted to show you what a model interfaith couple look like, so we're just going to put ourselves on that note. But you know, like Ani said, when it came around to wedding planning, you know, a lot of the tension when you are from different faiths is trying to figure out kind of how to structure the wedding. Everyone will have a view on what the right way to get married is, and I think navigating all of that can be very difficult. You know, the one thing I realized was that it would be impossible to find someone in, you know, from kind of a more traditional Islamic organization to do what we wanted, and that was to have kind of a unified multi-faith ceremony where we would have the Islamic wedding and we would have a Hindu wedding and we would have both our families participate in both. So, you know, I had just moved to Los Angeles, and I happened to Google a number of terms that led me to, you know, MPV's website. I called Ani a couple of days after that, and we had a nice long conversation, and I think that, you know, then sort of just made it a no-brainer that she was going to be the one who would be the officiant for our wedding. I think for me personally, having you know, a female Islamic officiant was kind of a dream come true. You know, and I think as far as our experience went, you know, Ani was very willing to sort of work with the Hindu priest. You know, and she kind of guided us through everything. She came up with a script. She sent us copies of the nikah contract and the certificate, all of which were really important to my mom, you know, to have done in sort of like the right way. And then I think her ceremony as well, if you want to speak about kind of how we, you know, work together with the Hindu priest to kind of make it all happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I was looking for was to sort of minimize the stress associated with just any aspect of planning. I think any sort of amount of stress that you can reduce is good. And I think this was one of the things that I think we both were more particularly focused and stressed about. And then I kind of had a really interesting realization, which I'll share with you before I kind of get into the details of what like the ceremony was like. So I think this is an important point. I think Zara and I being very open-minded, progressive people ourselves, you know, I think we ended up kind of maybe projecting a lot more stress on the families. And then once we kind of sort of presented our families with like, hey, this is what the Hindu priest is going to be thinking. By the way, our Hindu priest was a white guy. So, you know, there's that. And then there's a female imam. And then when we kind of brought both of them to the table with their families, I think they're like, awesome, this is great, let's do it. And then all of a sudden, Zara and I looked at each other, we're like, wait a minute. Were we just sort of not like, were we stressing for no real reason? And I think that's the actual truth. And I think it's like, you formulate these ideas in your head about what, you know, this interfaith ceremony, you know, could be, should be, would be. And at the end of the day, it was just a beautiful, short, which was, I think, to our guests' liking, ceremony. And it was executed flawlessly. And I think it was because Ani and our Hindu priest, they worked really closely together. And they just had fun with it. I think that was the biggest thing about it. And I think we had fun with it. And then her parents and my parents had fun with it. And I think I think eventually what ended up happening, that trickled down to the guests, because for a lot of people in the room that were not exposed to Hinduism or Islam before, you know, our friends from other faiths, this is their first real foray into those worlds. And equally with like Zara's family and my family, like, you know, like Ani was like, for my family, Ani was like their first real like meeting an imam, and they just think like, oh, that's how they all are and that's how they should be, right, honey? But I think it really broke a barrier in a good way. I think that was something that a lot of guests came up to me and said afterwards, which I think was really beautiful. And again, it was because it was easy to digest, it was quick, and it was done with a lot of heart and a lot of fun. And I think that to me was the biggest thing.
I think that's right. I mean, the one thing I will add is, for me, it was really important to present this very inclusive narrative of Islam to people that were attending our wedding, to everybody, and to sort of formalize that vision that I think all of us have, but we never think we'll be able to execute. And I will say, I mean, you know, Ani was terrific. I think she's kind of a born performer, and she should probably do weddings regardless of whether they're interfaith or Islamic. But I mean, overall, it could not have gone better. And I think the service that MPV is providing is absolutely incredible, I think, people like us and for kind of anybody in that position.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ani.
Thank you, Zara. Thank you, Jay. It was a beautiful service. You guys had fun. I mean, Jay was coming in on a scooter rather than an elephant. Okay, so
it was downtown Los Angeles. That's why.
Anyway, thank you for contributing to the retreat.
Your
perspective, and we should touch base soon. And I'm also happy to share with everyone listening that Zara is also now on our board of trustees for Muslims for Progressive Values, which is that awesome. So our next presenter is Blair Imani. Blair, are you there? Blair is MPV's ambassador extraordinaire, and she does a lot of our advocacy around LGBTQI issues. And she's an historian. She's got a fantastic book out, and of course, just simply a wonderful human being. On to you, Blair.
Thank you so much. Can everyone see and hear me all right?
Ah, there you are.
Fabulous. I'm glad it's working. Just 1 second, I need to address some settings so that my setup doesn't fall over on me. Let's see. All right, Assalamu alaikum everyone, and Ramadan Mubarak. Yesterday, Ani joined us for a delightful gathering specifically for LGBTQ Muslims, and I'm just getting such great feedback still, Ani, from it, and so I have some analytics to share to you all from that, and various other endeavors I've been engaged in with Muslims for Progressive Values. So essentially, just to kind of set things, my name is Blair Imani. I'm a convert to Islam in the house, and I converted in 2015. When I did so, I was very kind of in this like kind of Wahhabist mindset. I was kind of seduced by those types of things because that's what I saw representations of Islam being. I very much stopped being myself. I became more closeted than I've ever been in my life. My parents are very like open and liberal. And so this was like a mixture of me rebelling from my parents' liberalism by becoming a conservative, but still trying to find myself in the context of Islam. So in particular, when I had converted, I met my partner, Akeem, who I'm still with, alhamdulillah. And he was really like, you know, you can still be yourself and be Muslim. And this is one of the tenets of Muslims for Progressive Values. But my journey to finding MPV was far off from that point. In fact, I had even said, like, when I had heard of MPV, I've heard of Ani because I worked at Planned Parenthood for a while. And I remember like being so interested in MPV, but also just kind of feeling it was an anomaly, as a lot of Muslims feel our work is today. And so it's really interesting to see kind of how I, in just a short period of time, have realized, like, you know, left Wahhabism behind, kind of looked at MPV in this kind of like interesting, what's this about way? And now I'm like full force ambassador, shouting from the rooftops that MPV is crucial. And so I like where I am much better now because I'm much more myself, I'm much happier, mental health is better. And crucially, I get to use my platform to do important work. So I came into this work, sorry, I'm just fixing my turban. I came into this work following 2018. When I came out on Tucker Carlson Tonight, I think it was 2018 or 2017, I don't recall, but it's on YouTube. Essentially, I was being interviewed by him about Muslim safe spaces because in Australia, a Muslim organization had advocated that there should be safe spaces, and the funds used for CVE, countering violent extremism, should go to creating spaces where Muslims could have difficult conversations, just community spaces, instead of further alienating and pushing Muslims to the margins. And they needed a Muslim. I didn't know there was a Muslim boycott of Fox News at that time because I wasn't brought in on that discussion. I decided to go on. Long story short, I accidentally came out as a Black bisexual Muslim woman on national TV simply because I was correcting Tucker Carlson. Kind of overnight, I was framed as the queer Muslim, which is harmful because anytime you're tokenized, you end up edging out other people who've been doing the important work, people like Ani and Muslims for Progressive Values, in addition to other organizations. And it took me a while, about 2 years, to realize I can't do this work and carry this mantle of representation without having an organization behind me and in front of me and next to me that is doing this amazing work, because I get messages from people on a daily basis across the world, here in the United States and abroad, just pleading for someone to understand them. It can be best summed up as this one person who reached out to me from Egypt, who sent me a message because he literally typed in gay Muslim, found my page and needed somebody to talk to. And I realized I can't be a responsible Muslim or responsible public figure and claim that I can do this all by myself. So I was able to start funneling people to MPV's pages, start to beef up my own understanding of Quranic knowledge, and work with Ani directly. And it wasn't until that we were sitting down with each other on a panel at University of Michigan, I believe, where Ani and I were like, why aren't we already working together? And so Ani took me under her wing, and it's been delightful ever since. And so Ani summarized the work that I have done in the like the recap or the end of year like nonprofit newsletter. Ani, do you want me to go over that now?
No, yeah, sure. Just
okay.
Is good, yeah.
So essentially what I've been doing is, I'm looking for it now in my email, so inshallah I'll be able to, oh, I have it, okay. So basically what I've been doing is every time I have an event where I'm able to speak, basically people call on me, different universities and organizations call on me to share my own information about like who I am, like narrative conversation. I'm also an author and historian, so sometimes I talk about my books, but when they call on me specifically in my capacity as a queer Muslim or a progressive Muslim, I want to make sure that I'm not just like having the spotlight shown on me, but I'm actually like showing this is the work that MPV does, here's a structure, here's an organization, and here's something you can support tangibly to continue that work. Because even though everyone can make a difference, it's a lot more of a difference if we can do that together. For example, in 2019, I spoke at South by Southwest about Muslims for Progressive Values to an audience of 50 people. Then I did an event at Harvard's University's LGBTQ conference to an audience of 40 people. I did my TED Talk in Boulder, Colorado, where I felt a little censored by the production team, but alas, I think that the TED Talk now has like 35,000 views, and I speak about the need or the lack of requirement to bifurcate who you are as a person, as a queer Muslim. Further, I gave a talk at a screening of Accept the Call, which is an amazing film about radicalism, at the Human Rights Watch Film Festival, and various other endeavors. I also gave a talk with 2 different events at New York City Pride, and I directed people to text in Unity to 52886 to take our No Hate in My Faith pledge, and that's something that Ani and I brainstormed in addition to the larger apparatus of Muslims for Progressive Values and our wonderful volunteers to make people really own up to the fact that Islam is a faith of justice and of human rights and a deen of human rights, and it's important to bolster that. I've also spoken now at the Supreme Court twice at 2 different rallies, one with the ACLU and one with the Center for Reproductive Health, about abortion and also the Supreme Court case around Title IX. So I'm doing my usual running around, but now it's much more productive because I am able to attach that visibility to a larger apparatus. So that's really exciting. Yesterday, we had a delightful fundraiser for MPV USA. Oh, but before I get to the good news, I have some reflections that Ani wanted me to share. So what I found is that because there is such a dearth of just progressive organizations receiving funding, especially as it pertains to Islam, what ends up happening is that more conservative organizations consume the space. I'm not going to name names. It's Ramadan. I've taken a fast from gossip, but it's not necessarily gossip. It's just reporting the facts. But there's a lot of organizations that go by various acronyms, which fail to really stand up for queer Muslims. We saw after Pulse in 2017 that well, it was in 2016, I believe, but afterward we saw conservative Muslim organizations saying we stand with gay people, but what they fail to do is say, and people in our own ummah. They'll stop short of that. And then I didn't realize that I was starting to be used as a token. Organizations were preying on my lack of expertise around all the different kind of politics of Muslim organizations, and then also kind of putting me on a temporary pedestal to kind of corral my influence. So for example, I was invited by one organization in particular to speak with their staff during a Quran reading. And I was very much love bombed in this way where it's kind of what they do in cults where they really are like, oh, you're so awesome, thank you so much. And then they totally cut me off. And I was feeling very lost, but then I realized they were using my images at the staff conversations to say to donors, look at how queer and affirming we are, even though we really want nothing to do with Blair Armani or any other queer Muslims, look, we can check a box. So Ani was really gracious in helping me understand that landscape and helped me start to understand the ways that things operate in the United States, because essentially there are massive organizations that could declare an edict across the United States that say, stop doing conversion therapy, stop preaching against homophobia and transphobia. But instead, what we see is this wave of people who are countering Trump's conservatism, but still aligning themselves with evangelical conservatism around being against abortion, being pro-female genital mutilation, being anti-LGBTQ, and being anti-women's rights. And it's really harmful. And you also have Muslim influencers such as myself feeling an allegiance to these Muslim organizations, but not either having the capacity or expertise to backtrack and look at their actual record and their harms. So Ani's really gotten me hip to that, and I'm, trying to spread the knowledge in a way that is tactful, but also reduces the harm that has been done so far and prevents additional harm from being done. So what I found is as I give talks at different places, one, I'm the only Muslim on panels about progressive Islam, and I'm usually shut down or sidelined by non-Muslim white atheist allies. Allies don't shut people down, which is why I did scare quotes. At one in particular discussion, I did a talk. I'm not comfortable naming the organization, but I did give them feedback, which is why I'm not going to name them because I feel like reparative actions being taken place. But essentially, I was the only Muslim on a panel with two non-Muslims representing an organization called Muslim something. And there was a preacher who asked, I'm a gay priest. I don't espouse homophobia, but I want to help this organization I want to help this mosque, but the imam is homophobic. What do I do? And I told him, you have no obligation to help a place of harm. And I was shut down by the two non-Muslim, non-gay people allies who said, no, you should absolutely work with all Muslims all the time, regardless of your personal views. And they really told this priest to put himself in harm's way and put his congregation in harm's way of dealing with a homophobic entity. And I felt like that was really invalidating of my own experience as an actual LGBTQ person, as a bisexual person, and also as a Muslim, because I know that we shouldn't be just partnering in the faith space with organizations. Like, you wouldn't want to work with a homophobic Catholic group because you're trying to work with a Catholic. And in the same way, these organizations shouldn't just partner with Muslim groups that are homophobic just because they need to partner with a Muslim to, fill in their diversity alphabet. And so that's been really interesting to see. And I'm constantly running to Ani and being like, this happened. And Ani is so sagacious and really helps me be more centered and not get surprised or caught off guard. So that way, when I am in interviews or I am in different contexts or spaces where I realize that I'm expected to be there as a token, and how do I leverage that space in a productive and forward moving way? But then also, how do I reach back out to those organizations that aren't doing their best and start to move that forward? So it's a lot of work, and it's kind of my way of giving back, because I do all of this work unpaid, completely volunteer, and it's really fulfilling. And I feel like I've received so many blessings in my personal work and in my personal life from doing this work. And that, you know, from that kind of gray stuff brings me to the exciting thing, which is our event yesterday, Rainbow Uma. And this is where I'll close and I'll open up for questions. So start thinking of them now. Yesterday, we raised $533.15 with a virtual fundraiser that I held on Crowdcast, and it was attended by over 150 people who were all very active in the comments. Some of you may have attended as well. Essentially, I had this idea that, you know, I can't fast during Ramadan for medical reasons, but I still need to give back, and there's a quarantine, and I've been getting so many messages from queer Muslim young people and other people of faith who are dealing with homophobic parents because they had to move back from college to home, or they're essentially just in a bad place. And so I was like, how can we heal and how can we come together as a community? And so I had this idea, we're going to do a virtual iftar, but I had no idea how to accomplish it. And I was so afraid of dealing with homophobic trolls. And with this type of work, it's very high risk because all it takes is one person to hack and to out everyone. So I used Crowdcast, familiarize myself with the different privacy mechanisms, etc. Ani provided a delightful sermon, and the whole recap is available on my Instagram bio, and my Instagram is just my name. And so all the funds will be sent by May 10th to Muslims for Progressive Values, and this will be the first of many different events. So that was really, really well received. It was very emotional, and Ani, I was saying at the top of the discussion that so many people are really delighted that you, a straight Muslim, both acknowledge and understand your privilege and did so in that space, but continue to fight for us instead of us just fighting for us. So that was really beautiful. There was that delightful thing, and then also these wonderful infographics that Ani and the MPV team created to basically clarify so many elements of the misinformation around queerness in Islam using Quranic text, using defensive theology. And so the media engagements were off the charts. On my Instagram page, it was seen by over 40,000 people. 43% of those people did not follow me. So that's great growth. And then also for the impressions on Twitter, 38,000 people saw it with 7,000 different engagements. And so that was, it's just really exciting to see how our work is being continued. And so that is my time, but I thank you all so much for joining this retreat and being involved with Muslims for Progressive Values. It's really restorative and important work, and it's good for our deen and good for the Ummah.
Thank you, Blair. That was wonderful. And thanks for sharing the experiences that you had. There's a lot of context and dynamics that people are not aware when it comes to doing and in our work in the progressive spaces and as progressive in the conservative spaces. So thank you for also inviting me yesterday. It was really wonderful. It was just such a wonderful event. And we need to discuss because we need to do more stuff together online in this regard. So we are long overdue past our 3-hour time frame. What we want to do is this. We're going to start wrapping it up, but there's one thing where there was a question that was asked. So Kelly's going to answer those questions, and then I am going to do the Al-Fatiha to end the program, and then we will say goodbye until next time. So the question asked was, number one, how did they go about rereading the Quran free from the image of the angry, restrictive God that conservatives are advocating? And question two, how to deal with doubt about what Islam really is when divisive, aggressive factions are on the rise everywhere? What do you do when you start being scared and think, what if they are right? What if God agrees with them? Kelly?
Yeah, I completely understand those, and I kind of feel like those questions go together a lot, so thanks for asking that. It is frustrating because it seems like a lot of times the loudest voices are those that are promoting this idea that Islam is not this wonderful thing that a lot of us have found here. I feel like it's really important to go back to the beginning, to Al-Fatiha, because it says to me right there, that, you know, God is, it starts out, every single chapter in the Quran, save one, starts out with God is most merciful and most beneficent. And so if you center everything on those two concepts, then that kind of overturns all of those things. So even if the majority that you see out there is that, then you can be confident in the fact that our Quran constantly talks about God being merciful and beneficent. And in Al-Fatiha, it talks about helping us recenter ourselves into those aspects inside of our lives. So I hope that as you read Quran, if you find stuff that you do see in that light, that you seek out people, you seek out organizations like ours, you seek out, you know, other people, maybe a Sufi group or something that engages with Quran in a totally different manner, because there is lots of love in the Quran. I feel like that's something that probably was brought on more by maybe other religious hegemony in our country, where there's a dominant religion that likes to pretend that they're the best and nothing else is. So, but yeah, and if you're scared, if you think that, just remember that the Quran also talks about, you know, God, you know, the truth stands clear from error. Know that as fact, and that God shows you mercy and doesn't bring anything that is more of a burden than you can handle. So I don't know. I feel like when I go through it, it just, you know, it's clear to me, and so I just kind of have to again do what the Quran says and trust in God and just step off and go confidently with my faith. So
I would like to add to that before we wrap up is that the one thing that always anchors me personally and much of our community and the work that we do is the notion of justice. Islam is justice. Justice is Islam is our hashtag as well. Because if people say that, oh, Islam is a religion of peace, well, you can't have peace if you don't conduct yourself and conduct society in a just manner. And so when people are advocating for violence or discriminatory practices and belief system, that is unjust to the person that is on the receiving end. And so that should be the guiding, the moral guide for us. And don't let all this other noise clutter your spirituality and your connection and the true path. And so the true path, on that note, I'm going to recite the Al-Fatiha and to end this program. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. Thank you everyone for joining. Peace, blessings, Kareem, Ramadan Kareem to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.